Just a minute.
Anka, where's Anka?
Wait a minute, I missed the. Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Oh, now we're live. So welcome to IBM TV. Ankit has not joined us. He usually does all the introduction. Namaste, is that how you say that? To our friends in India, we have Miss Kumar coming in from New Delhi, right? Welcome to the show. Namaste, right? From Washington, D.C., the Tower of Power, we have Bill Trezevan, who's over there, who's going to be giving our Washington intro in a minute. Kim Calhoun, my illustrious partner for many years in this crazy venture, is from the Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle Park. She's also sits on the board of North Carolina State's Computer Science Department. Down below, we have our very famous Sasha Starr, who does Investing with Sasha from Toronto, also gives us all the reports what's going on in Russia, as we learn a lot from our Russian friends and have so. But you could also see him Saturday on Chess Stars, which is a Saturday on IBM TV. And of course, we have Jim Eade with the Eade Foundation in the Socialist Republic of Silicon Valley, the communist, but also the very famous author. And I tell people all the time, he wrote a great book called, here it is, Chess for Dummies. He is actually our resident dummy. So we have to have at least one of them. As you know, we have a resident genius on Saturdays, but we also actually have a resident dummy. But let's find out what's going on in Washington. Let's go to our Washington report today and find out what's going on.
From IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, this is your report from Washington. Donald Trump finally got the pageantry, fireworks, and adulation he seemingly craves last night at the conclusion of the Republican National Convention. Serenaded by operatic legend Christopher Macchio to the songs of Hallelujah, Ave Maria, and God Bless America, the Trump family, flanked by at least 88 American flags, stood center stage in front of a crowd estimated at approximately 1,000 guests. The only thing missing was a military flyover. Prior to this controversial state send-off, the Republican speakers maintained their convention thematic plan of attacking Joe Biden and the Democrats while extolling the virtues of Donald Trump. The attacks included characterizing the Democrats as poverty dealers who were hooking the American public on free money. Portraying Biden as a puppet president and a risk who wants to defund all first responders, the attacks also included unfounded allegations that Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is a profiteer in his dealings with China while Joe Biden was vice president. An echo of the same allegations involving Hunter Biden involving the Ukraine. The attacks continued on the biased media and China. In a bizarre twist, the speakers directly attacked the mayor of New York City, a Democrat, alleging an increase in crime due to left-wing policies. We double-checked our sources and are confident that the mayor of New York City is not a candidate for president of the United States in any of the 57 states and territories of America. Following wistful and warm videos evoking sports competitions, apple pie, and restful summer afternoons, the speakers provided a laundry list of Donald Trump's accomplishments, including killing terrorists, crushing ISIS, criminal justice reform, his upset victory in 2016, his heroic fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, Middle East peace, and his straight talk to the American people. This apparently explaining away his prolific tweeting over the last 3.5 years. Again, invoking the legacy of former President Abraham Lincoln, Republicans declared that Donald Trump does not engage in identity politics, only to then list his support for blacks, Jews, historically black colleges and universities, and women. At 10:05 p.m., Ivanka Trump took center stage to introduce her father. Interspersed with family stories of building blocks and Legos, marked by seemingly scripted applause from the audience in what resembled a State of the Union address, Ivanka Trump spoke of her father's accomplishments on child care tax breaks, his fight for family leave, his resilient fight to restore America, and in the end declaring that the best is yet to come. At 10:25 p.m., Donald Trump and the First Lady replicated Donald Trump's candidate announcement. This time, rather than descending using an escalator, the two walked down the White House's ceremonial steps to the stage on the South Lawn to the song, "I'm Proud to Be an American." The president spoke in acerbic and extreme language for nearly an hour, covering the same attacks and allegations of the previous 3 nights. New this time, though, was the president's promise of full employment for all Americans, soaring incomes, and protecting America. He promised America would reach new heights, a new level of unity, and achieve lofty goals, although the goals were undefined. Cue the fireworks. In other news, the comprehensive COVID-19 relief package has a heartbeat. A day after Mitch McConnell declared that he would support a package, and the Federal Reserve Board chairman called on Congress for a fiscal stimulus deal, Mark Meadows, the chief of staff to the president, called Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Thursday afternoon to restart negotiations. The agenda for the phone discussion included not only the COVID-19 relief package, but also the plethora of looming funding bills necessary and critical to stave off a government shutdown weeks before the election on November 3rd. In our post office update, there has been no movement on the $25 billion emergency funding bill passed by the House, and it remains dead in the legislative process in the Senate. Finally, 57 years ago to the day, in a sequel to the 1963 March on Washington, Martin Luther King III, along with Reverend Al Sharpton and thousands of marchers, will descend on Washington, D.C. this weekend in a commitment march. The pre-program begins at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with the main program beginning at 11 a.m. Finally, the current COVID death toll from Johns Hopkins University is over 180,857 Americans, with no end in sight. That is your report for this day, August 28, 2020. From IBM TV, International Broadcast Media, smart TV for a smarter global community, from dictatorships to democracies around the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm Bill Trezevant. Thank you.
And that saved me hours of having to listen to this stuff last night. Thank you, Bill, okay, for doing a report, because I don't know if I could sit through it for hours when you get a synopsis in about 5 minutes. And now you know what's going on in this wonderful country, the United States of America. For our viewers around the world, in case you don't know, we're having this thing called election. We have 2 parties and they go at each other, and then somebody wins, somebody loses. Kind of, I don't know if it happens in other parts of the world, but it's just something we do here in the United States. But it's Medical Friday. And one of the most important things, Bill, that you say, and I've heard this before, we have in the United States 1,000 people a day dying, not being infected, dying of COVID-19.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to me, just running the math, we're looking at around 360,000 a year die at this pace. Would that be something that would be correct, somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yes, approximately 1,000 a day. I checked with Johns Hopkins earlier this morning before I filed that report, and the overnight death toll was approximately 1,021 lost American souls. But you're right, if we, and the numbers are simple, 1,000 a day would be over 365,000
every year. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, to me, those numbers are somewhat unsustainable, and no one ever annualizes the numbers. In other words, and companies are really great at that. They always say, well, it's only $90 a month. And if you annualize it, well, you're spending $1,200 a year, but they never do that. They always go per month. And if you go 1,000 a day, well, that doesn't sound so bad, but it's 365,000 people who will die by next year this time, unless we get this thing under control.
Well, Nick, that's really an understatement, because that only deals with those deaths that are officially related to COVID. It does not include, so in some respects, it's going to represent an undercount, because it does not represent the denial of medical services for people suffering from other ailments, heart attacks or accidents that need surgery that can't get into the hospitals because their beds are taken up, as well as those individuals who die at home from COVID-related symptoms or other ailments because they did not seek out medical treatment. So
right.
The 365, which is bad enough, is really an undercount when we look across our American society. And I know you have some thoughts with regard to other countries and where we rate.
Oh yeah, well, my thoughts are mainly with Malaysia because Sharif runs, I think, tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock for people to get up that early. Pacific time, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, so 2:30. Sharif does the Sharif School of Economics out of Malaysia, and he informed me. When people never in the United States want to look overseas, but with a population of 30 million, they have 125 deaths total. That's it, you know. And it gives you an idea how serious they are over in Malaysia, and they are in a lot of the Pan-Asian countries in terms of controlling the COVID-19 virus. Here we have 180,000 growing at 1,000 per day. It just shows how we are not serious about it. Yesterday, I think at the where you're at in Washington D.C., they had 2,000 people, none of them wearing masks.
That's correct.
All of them not social distancing. What is that all about? Is that to signify to everybody the COVID-19 has stopped, but then you just tell me we have 1,000 deaths? What's going on there in your crazy neck of the woods, Bill? And you know, Bill, we're going to blame this all on you because you live in Washington, D.C., right? So you have to be the scapegoat.
Okay, and I will comment, but first, with that, I take on that profoundly and deeply, and I accept the nomination of IBM TV. I'm just the Bill up here on Capitol Hill.
You're the messenger. Let's shoot the messenger.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
what is going on here? You guys got 2,000 people there in your city, none of them wearing masks, none social distancing, and we're killing people 1,000 a day.
Messaging.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the message?
The campaign wanted to send a message that the world is better, the best is yet to come, that there's nothing to worry about, that it's morning, MORNING, rather than morning, MOURING. In America. And in that regard, to satisfy the initial critics who talk about CDC standards and distancing and such, the White House and the campaign operation explained that everybody was going through extensive COVID-19 testing prior to being let on the south lawn of the White House. However, as it turns out, that was not true, and they just let the guests in. However, it was the campaign strategy of the Trump campaign to send a bright, beautiful picture to the world that everything is okay and that this is the future. So
is that just, I mean, I don't mean to put them down, but isn't that just kind of misleading and misrepresenting the truth right now? Because we're still struggling. There are a lot of people who are still very much so struggling, as well as I've kind of been out of touch a little bit about what's going on with the evictions and everything. But I was in the emergency room 2 days ago for some situations. And I will say even that has changed so much since how this is Medical Friday. My experience was very different than in previous COVID. They're so overwhelmed right now that all the beds were taken. They couldn't treat people that were coming in. They were literally, and no offense to them, they were doing the best they could, but they were sticking people with their IV ports so that they can run the test and do things for people and throwing you back out in the lobby to fend for yourself. And then out in the lobby, you had a lot of people who decided, well, I'm not going to wear my mask, even though they have rules that everybody wear their mask. And so they're sitting there, and it's becoming this aggravated situation. But isn't that kind of, to me, and I will say this, they have perfected the testing to where they can test people in less than 1 day. People were getting COVID tested as they came into the ER. They did not test me, but they tested a lot of people, and they would throw them into a container, basically this self-contained area, until their test results came back. And they were doing the test within hours, which was nice to know that can happen. But that's just, to me, falsifying the true facts. It's covering up and sweeping it under the rug rather than facing. I would have rather them faced us with, this is a problem we have and we need to address it. I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox again.
Well, let's talk to our friend in Russia, because the United States obviously has a problem with truth. We keep saying Russia has a problem with truth, but wait a minute. It doesn't seem like we're much better. So Russia, what do we have to say over there? Alexander Starr, of course you're in Canada.
First of all, I overheard yesterday one of the speakers of the convention said that sooner or later we are all going to get this coronavirus disease. So the sooner is the better, and those who will overcome it, and they will do. Most of the people, as the statistics is concerned, do. Those unfortunate people who will not do so well, so okay, they'll die anyways sooner or later. Okay, so that's not a big concern to our Republican friends, so-called. Now, in Russia, there are actually quite a few stories. The first story is number one is U.S. elections. They all heavily in favor of Trump to be re-elected. And today, one of the talk shows, they celebrated yesterday's events in Washington, and they're just as happy as you you can think. And now another thing is that this opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, he is now in Germany. Obviously, he was poisoned. And as Gary Kasparov said in an interview to one radio station in Russian, he said that the people of Navalny's stature, it's a property of state. The decision to poison him or kill could come only from the very top. And the name of the person at the very top, we all know very well. It's Vladimir Putin. So obviously, everything goes right from the top. Now, the question is whether the decision was to kill him and people on the ground are just negligent, lazy, uh, inefficient, and all will be fired and probably killed for doing that, or that was a decision just to poison him and see what's happened. Maybe he will reconsider his actions or so on. And there are also somebody suggested to Kasparov that maybe it was done to divert attention from what's happening in Belarus. And Kasparov said 100% no, because the action like that comes from the very top. Action like that has to be very carefully prepared. And by the way, there are a lot of things that would not go that exactly way, because Navalny, which had a tea at the Tomsk airport, he could not order tea. Maybe he wouldn't order anything at this bloody airport, right? Okay, so then they would have to still do something else to proceed. So that was well-planned action. The only clear is a result of the action. Was he supposed to be killed or just maimed or just put under psychological pressure or whatever? That's basically, in two words, what's happening in Russia concerning that.
Well, that's good to know that poisoning is a way of getting rid of opposition. Ms. Kumar, in India, the world's largest democracy, do you poison your opposition if you just don't agree with them? Is that how you
We
handle
don't speak about it.
Oh, you don't talk about it? Okay, well, that's a good answer.
Admit nothing. Blame the fifth.
Jim?
Miss Kim, is poisoning a effective way of taking care of your opposition, Miss Kim?
I missed something. I'm sorry. Which opposition?
In other words, if you disagree with if you disagree with somebody, okay, I give you a drink and it happens to be full of poison. Okay,
Yeah.
This way the disagreement is over with. Is that a way
No.
that you guys handle
No.
opposition?
No, because then that person is martyrized. I mean, this happens a lot in Russia, right? So I have a friend. She's lovely. She's an ornithologist, very esteemed. And she was caught poisoning cats because cats are a huge threat, outdoor cats, to birds. And they've decimated, is it 60% of the bird population, species of all kinds? So she was taken to court. And of course, she was vilified and it hurt her career. In terms of Lushenko and other, victims, I think poisoning people is never correct. So Yeah, it's
Okay.
actually quite serious.
I just want to make sure of that because see, Jim Ead totally disagrees in Silicon Valley when things like that happen. They actually poison all these high tech guys over there. Speaking about poisoning and high tech people, we are sponsoring the International Peace Day, which is September 21st. So we'd like all our producers and our panelists and IBM TV to do a little bit of a show for International Peace Day and have their show themed around International Peace Day on September 21st. Now, I'm not sure how you're going to get War Game with all these warriors like chess players like Jim Ead to segue his chess show into something peaceful. I just don't see how that's going to happen. So, Jim, that's going to be your problem. I know that you engage in this horrific warrior game called chess, but how are you going to make that peaceful? I just don't see it. I don't see how your chess game can be peaceful. So you tell me how you're going to do that before we remove you from the panel.
Just go ahead and remove me.
Oh, no. Wait a minute.
No. I was going to send you some poison, but anyway. So the thing is, there's no way you can possibly.
In Silicon Valley here, we don't poison people. We give them poison pills if they try to acquire our company. So and of course, this is true in our Congress as well, because legislation that is otherwise perfectly reasonable can be amended with a poison pill so that it cannot be passed. So this poisoning aspect is not just in Russia, but we're not quite as upfront about it. And, I did want to talk to both you, Nick, and Bill, because when you're doing your calculations, you're using the Gregorian calendar. And I think it would be simple if we reverted to the Julian calendar, there would be fewer deaths.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We could do that. Okay. Brilliant suggestion from our.
Don't test so much, because when you test, you find cases.
That's true.
And use a different calendar, you'll have fewer deaths. So.
Right. There are actually ways to reverse this whole process by changing the calendar and not testing. And is there a way we can just not count deaths? In other words, somebody dies of COVID-19, but they have a heart condition.
That's right.
List them as a heart condition.
Oh, we do that.
Ignore COVID-19.
Similar thing happened here in Delhi also. Couple of private laboratories and pathological labs, they were instructed that they should not be doing the tests initially. So when I had to go for my mom's test, I had to run to labs just in search that where do I get the test done. So that this is a very good strategy though, but very scary, and it's very lethal also. That fewer tests, fewer cases, fewer deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
and couple of hospitals which were turned into COVID hospitals, they refuse to treat any other medical elements. So if you are infected with COVID and have an underlying heart disease, they are saying make your patient COVID negative, take them to the different hospital. They are not allowed here in our hospital because this is a COVID hospital.
Hey, Nick and Bill, this is Mark. I've just been sitting back in the cut waiting to interject for a minute because, sometimes I'll just jump right on in because that's my nature. But today I felt like being quiet and listening and observing. Plus, I was up late. So that being said, didn't we already try this one time in science fiction where we didn't count things? Because I remember this certain movie, I think it was called Soylent Green. And they didn't count the people. They just kind of went ahead and made them into food, and they didn't count them, and folks disappeared in that movie. So that's just one example. But I think we've already tried this non-counting strategy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that what they did is they ultimately started killing so many people they started eating them, or they turned them into this green thing and then they ate them. It's a movie called Soylent Green. I highly not recommend it for anybody.
Highly not recommended.
There's a lot of sick movies that exist out there.
Hotel Hell was another one. Excuse my term.
Which one?
Hotel Hell. That one's ruined my brain forever. I was watching it with my boys, and they were like, "Oh, this is," or my nephews, and I'm like, "This is so cool." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I will never watch another." Hitchcock, though. Hitchcock had the movies on the poison, right, where the women, poison people with cyanide. The movie Suspicion comes to brain. Hitchcock was great.
Arsenic and Lace.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that one. That was one of my favorites. So, but those were classics. They weren't so gross, suspenseful. But this is not truly the way we should do things. Apparently, Russia does. And I think people got that idea from watching movies. One of the things that concerns me is this attitude of, well, it's only, a couple 100,000 people dying from this death. And honestly, that's, I feel like that was the way Hitler truly believed, that this was the way nature would cleanse the weak people for us. And if you look at the strategies they used, that's what it was all about. Not that I read a lot about Hitler, but truly believed that nature would kill the weak for us, just let them die, don't do anything for them. And I just don't think that that's the way it is. When I was in the hospital this week, I was so impressed with the care that the people were given to all the people who would have COVID. The sad thing is that when we try to do the herd immunizations, like they're saying, oh, well, we're all going to get it anyway. The doctors have pleaded and begged, don't overwhelm us, right? Please don't overwhelm us. Make sure that we kind of control this and contain it a little bit, because all the beds are taken right now. They can't treat the people with the heart conditions. They can't treat the people with other diseases like I have. Like when I have an emergency come up and I need to get in there, I'm so scared to go there because I don't want to catch COVID. But the beds were taken. The beds were also taken. I'm gonna bring this up because this is another problem we're having today. The beds were also taken from gang shootings with the police officers, because right now that there's this big situation of no trust with the police and the communities right now. And so the beds were taken and the rooms were full, and even the lobby was full of these kind of situations. And you've got the doctors being overwhelmed. They are overwhelmed. I have been to ERs many times in my lifetime because of my disease. I have never seen anything like this. It is devastating.
Mm-hmm.
So Kim,
Kim.
Are you considering having a hospital visit at a COVID hospital, and are they separated from the non-COVID hospitals where you are?
We have not separated them. I have recommended this from day one that this happened, because that would have been a pandemic. That would have been a good pandemic thing, or turn the hotels into a COVID hospital quarantine facility and send good COVID doctors there properly equipped. The problem is our doctors aren't even properly equipped. I go in there and you got patients that are COVID, and these doctors, they're just wearing their regular doctor gear and a mask. That's it. They're not even wearing their shields. They're because it's too much in their way to handle these situations. But I agree with you. This needs to go to, they need to separate it first. They do. Thank you, J.H. Kim. I appreciate that. But what?
I was going to say, Kimberly, there is an internet rule. If you mention Hitler, the discussion is over. I'm just teasing you, but there is that rule. And I did want to go back to the convention for a moment and ask Bill his opinion, because there's some fact-checking going on in both the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention. And can you tell us a little bit about the results of that fact-checking?
Well, in short, the Democrats told the truth, and they are still currently counting up the what they consider outright misstatements, factual errors, and innuendo and false impressions that were deliberately left by the Republican National Convention, and they're still tabulating it. I assume some of the results are being mailed in.
Yeah,
I just had a great idea, and it actually involves our illustrious panel right here. Coach Kumar and Kim are all about trying to balance society and balance the lifestyles of people and things of that nature. So I'm thinking that we might need to send them, one from California and one from India, to DC to try to help us balance those people in the DC area. I think that they would have tremendous success. So I just think that that's my nomination. Since we're nominating people for things, I'm sending Coach Kumar and Kim to DC to help us balance up.
He means that Kim, J.H. Kim, who's got this just perfectly balanced mindset of what's going on. I've enjoyed seeing her text and for the first time getting an opportunity to meet her, I guess, face to face. So
Well, Kimberly and Mark, I think she prefers to be called Jung or
Changhua, please.
Jungwa, no problem. Jungwa.
I'll go by almost anything.
my apologies. So
no. I did the same thing. Yeah.
Younghwa. So, and I'm learning to pronounce the names properly. I spent years working with different nationalities, and it was easier for me if I got their business card and heard it at the same time of reading their name, and it stayed forever. But thank you, Younghwa. But let's think about some of these aspects that are happening. And the other thing, I've not received an answer yet of what's really going on with the eviction of people, because that will increase or decrease our health. If you think about it, that's a huge impact on our economy. But displacing people from shelter, displacing them from their home. So I don't even know what happened on Monday. I've heard two things going on. I heard that they had ordered for it not to happen, but I also heard that it's already started. So does anyone, Bill, do you have an answer?
Well, it depends on the region of the country, quite frankly, and both politically and geographically. So politically speaking, some people are choosing to give authority to the executive order that President Trump signed, indicating that he was going to extend the moratorium on evictions. But of course, the legal authority for that is untested, while others are choosing to ignore that and proceed. However, the difference in that, I think, is politically, depending on what camp you're in. However, geographically, it's much different in this regard. As we know, Louisiana, Texas, and swaths of the Midwest have not only been hit by Laura, but also the prior hurricane. And so in some respects, Kimberly, there have been forced evictions as a result of these natural disasters. But the outgrowth of the natural disasters have meant that any legal proceedings in those geographic areas, and I'm talking about almost the entire state of Iowa, their crops have been devastated and farms have been devastated from the hurricane 2 weeks ago, as well as Hurricane Laura, which just impacted Texas, Louisiana, up into Mississippi, and the southeastern states. So there's nothing going on legally there, but it is an uneven, depending on who's choosing to enforce it. It's more like a wild, wild west, but you're absolutely right.
The impression I get, and this is based on personal experience, is that it's being left a lot to the apartment complexes and things of that nature. I can tell you that from my own apartment complex, that I think it was maybe about a week and a half ago, that those that were slightly behind or very much behind, or however you want to describe it, were basically given a letter that the process was going to continue. The process was still going on, meaning the process of being evicted or being out of your apartment or whatever that nature was. But then at the same time, they sent out like a list of about 15 or 20, maybe 25 agencies that they had been told was agencies that could be helping you or assisting you financially. So it was kind of like they were saying, we're going to go through the process, but while we're going through the process, we're going to also give you a list of folks that might be able to help you in the process. So I think that there's a little bit of, and I know that there are certain words that have become very fashionable, like pivot, and what I would call diversion, another one, or divert. So I think there's a little bit of diversion of responsibility going on from some folks. So that's kind of the impression that I'm getting, is one of the ways that North Carolina is handling it, is that they're just kind of like trying to say, we want to save our hides and we want to save our company, but at the same time, we want to see if there are ways that we can help folks that are going through this, and that they can go ahead and get some money from whatever the agencies are, be that church, be that state agencies, be that whatever. So that's kind of what's going on. And to kind of like circle it back around to COVID and everything else, I mean, and that is also very COVID related, but we're also seeing a number of our schools that are, and comes back to even what John Bob was talking about in terms of secondary hospitals, because a number of our schools are now sitting relatively empty because they sent their students back home to do online learning because with that online learning, they were finding COVID cases and they were popping up all over the universities, whether that was in dorms, whether that was in frat houses, whether that was in sorority houses, and they were sending them back to do online learning at their respective homes and basically kicking them off the campus. So that being said, they a lot of space in the universities for a secondary COVID hospital should one be created, because like I said, those dorms are now sitting fairly empty, if not totally empty. I know here in Durham that they were also sending some of them to a couple of hotels. So some of the hotels, because some people are from out of state, they're from out of the country, they're from all kinds of places that they can't necessarily automatically get home. So the universities did recognize that, and they were sending people in those cases to some hotels and that had made themselves available, kind of the way that they did with some of the homeless population during COVID as well. So that's kind of some of the things that are going on that I've been able to observe just here in North Carolina. I don't know if folks have comments on the ways that schools are handling things and things of that nature, but that's just some of the things that I've observed.
It's the same in California. So our city manager actually in California, Northern California, opened up one of our state parks to house the people on the cruise ship, the Princess here, to determine if they had COVID or not. And that took about 2 weeks to a month. And I think your idea of campuses is very interesting because there's a lot of obviously space that can be leveraged with regards to secondary hospitals or resource-friendly hospitals. Our issue here is regarding where is the money going to come from to support this, always, right? And the fear that's associated with having potentially COVID patients in your neighborhood. If this was a secondary hospital or a secondary treatment facility for secondary procedures and outpatient procedures, I think that would be very positive for the community. A lot of the teachers here are still teaching on campus. So I'm just curious about other people's experiences in their communities. Thank you.
I think Nick is sharing some facts about COVID.
Yeah, well, I was
Nick,
trying
you
to
want to
share.
explain something?
Yeah, I was trying to share some facts about COVID, and the thing is, it started running to a commercial. Facts. So yeah, I mean, it's something that we don't seem to appreciate in Washington, the other Washington D.C. But it was a screen sharing deal here that, and I finally found the application that I think has a pretty good handle. Oh, it just went off the air, but it looks like the Ankit, you know where it was. It shows the whole world.
USA.
Yeah, in other words,
no, USA is not doing well in that category, unfortunately. I don't think India is doing well either.
We're number one.
I do have an idea. By the way, Jim, I'm loving your shirt. I know we had Fatima on one time, my fashion friend, and she was complimenting you on the shirt. By the way, Coach Kumar, you are also being very fashionable as well. So, and we won't even talk about how stellar and wonderful Bill's outfit is. So while we're getting back to the COVID conversation, I just wanted to give a quick fashion critique and everything. So, and of course, Jungwa always looks wonderful as well. So definitely want to give a shout out to Coach Kumar for her fashion sense.
Every day.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here's the world leaders. This is a great, and I was searching for it. Yeah, this is very helpful because it shows the data in real time, basically what's going on in the United States of America. And it's showing only 171 deaths as opposed to 1,000. So I heard the 1,000 new deaths a day, but this is showing 171.
Nick, I'm sorry. If you look at it, their end result, their total is 184, 967, whereas Johns Hopkins had 180. So I think this one incorporates the 1,000 and then add some.
So
okay.
All right, but the thing, okay. But again, it's just that I know people in Washington D.C. are not interested in accurate, verifiable data, but at IBM TV, smart television, we are. So the thing is, I wanted to see what the actual numbers are.
But you have to read the data correctly too.
You got to read the data correctly too. Well, one person concentrates on the death per million, which is around 558, which if you look at it is not low. It's actually pretty high. Brazil is also pretty high. We're at 558 also, and then all of a sudden India is only 45 deaths per million. So it actually goes down. Now that may be attributed to a younger population. Yes, Ms. Kumar?
Well, that's undercounting, isn't it, Ms.
It could be, but it also could be because a younger population. See, the thing is, the U.S. has an older population, Japan has older populations, but India does not, and it affects older people more than it does younger people. Hence, we have a higher mortality rate per million.
Their immune systems might be different.
Yeah, they may not be as overweight.
Younger people are super spreaders. Well, so how is this related to the world public health system?
Well, the thing is, what I look at, what they do is we focus in on the top, but let's scroll down and let's go look at some of the countries that are more in control. We know these countries are not in control: the United States, Brazil, India, Russia, Peru. But as you start scrolling down, you start seeing countries like my friends in Malaysia, as soon as Sharif shows up, Canada, way down there in terms of deaths. But again, you look at deaths per million. That's the reason he moved to Canada, not Russia.
Yeah.
Sasha's smart. The thing is, why go to Russia and the United States and have to deal with all this? China, we're not sure if this data is.
You can't believe that now.
I can't say the veracity of the data, so we will skip that one.
3 people, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. But Japan should be correct. If we look at Japan,
but Nick, there's a big news from Japan. There's a big news from Japan today. Prime Minister of Japan, he resigned because of bad health, and it might be COVID. So I mean, there's a conflict going around in Japanese media right now, but we are not sure. But the news is that he just stepped out.
Yeah, but the total deaths of 1,200 on a population close to 200 million is remarkably very, very good.
And they have a very strong public health system. I mean, one of the things is that the U.S. is at the bottom, towards the bottom of the, in terms of our healthcare. So in terms of systems of healthcare globally, because the U.S. is on the bottom and other countries with more robust public health systems are on the top, I think this is directly related to our response in terms of the COVID.
I mean, even Venezuela, 358 people, and we complain about Venezuela, but they only have 358 deaths.
They're also very community-minded, whereas we're very independent-minded, and we don't believe in we don't value intellect or science as a culture, whereas they do.
Look at my friends in Nepal, 195, but it's not a big population, but still it's only 7 per million in Nepal. I mean, maybe we should go visit Shambhu Pokhrel, our friends in Nepal, because they have very few. So as you keep scrolling down, you start seeing Australia, our mates in Australia who aren't on right now, but look at their deaths per million, 23. And total Australia is what? Not even 1,000. We have more people die in a day than Australia has in total forever. I mean, this is embarrassing, There's
no doubt that that's embarrassing. But to come back to one of the other panelists' point and everything, which is definitely having to deal with the way that the government treats science and even treats everything else in terms of folks that have power and things of that nature. I would love to hear maybe Bill's perspective on the force of the lobbies, because to me, one of the biggest lobbies that we've got, and I actually personally think that it's causing some of the problems with our attack on COVID, is the drug lobby. So I would love to hear Bill's take on the power of the drug lobby in DC, because you're over there in DC, and I know that I'm here in North Carolina. Glaxo is here in North Carolina. There are a number of other drug companies here, and sometimes we don't even get the kind of things that we should be getting because those drug lobbies are kind of stopping bills, stopping other things, because that's not a way that they can make their profit. But I just wanted to know Bill's take on the power of that lobby, because I'm just rambling on about what I think the power is, but you're there in DC. So I'd love for you to talk about how forceful a lobby that is.
Well, to put it in context, I think you have to think on a couple of different levels. First, it's not just direct lobbying of the House of Representatives and the senators. which is impactful. And it's also their ability to contribute to political action committees. It is also their ability to send their representatives out and enlist the help of doctors. Now, a couple of years back, every so often, there are these scandals that erupt about kickbacks to doctors for using certain medications exclusively that are more expensive. But the lobbyists, in addition to all of that, which we would generally consider dark money, also write the pharmaceutical bills that Congress passes most often. And so they write in loopholes and barriers and any number of things. I mean, I know all of you know that it's common knowledge that drug prices are significantly cheaper just across the border in Canada. And in many respects, say, for example, in the state of Vermont and other northeastern states, they would run bus trips for seniors that they would call tourist events, where the seniors would go up to Canada with their prescriptions, and then they would buy all of their prescription drugs up in Canada because they were significantly cheaper, and then they would spend the day and then come back to the United States. So, Mark, on that point, you're right. It is significant. It is pernicious. It is just under the surface. And when you try to legislate or attempt to get a handle on it, it's really like the game Whack-A-Mole. Each time you hit one spot, they pop up in another area as a new firm or a new lobbyist group or political action committee.
Yeah, that's real true. Because I know even here in Durham, those PACs, those political action committees, can be very much forces within the election. So I know we've had a number of folks that have talked about that. I was just wondering, are the political action committees really that big in other parts of the world as well? Because I know they're really big here. I know they're big in California, where definitely Jung-Hwa is and Jim is, but I don't know how big they are in like India and in Canada. So how big are the political action committees in other parts of the world?
So you're talking to me, or you wanted to ask question to Coach Kumar?
Whoever wants to take it. You're both from India, so whoever can take it.
So I'm a global citizen, so I can talk to any other, regarding any country. I think I should defer to Coach Kumar.
No, but I think you should answer this because you are too much into politics. I'm just listening and analyzing.
I'm not a political guy. I just follow politics because we are a part of a political system, but I'm not political. I think I'm like Jim.
I'll talk about India.
Go ahead. That's a great achievement for us.
It's a big country with 1.3 billion people living in India, and 300 million people living outside India. And politics is like after cricket in Bollywood, it's all politics. Okay, and everyone needs that powerful chair, where I'm sitting. Everyone needs that chair because power is something which is more important. Power comes. Once you have power, you have all the money and all those things coming up at your end, and that's what happened in democracy. And then we have multiple party system and multiple levels of election going around from the top prime minister, president level to the bottom level. If I'm living in a society, we also have elections coming up where we will choose a treasurer or a president to manage the RW and things like that. So everyone wants to be a part of that political system, and that's what India is all about. And when you talk about elections, I believe every second day we have election going on somewhere or the other. Maybe because of COVID, there is kind of a break right now because what's happening, but it's all politically enabled country, and we love politics. That's why we have more than 500 channels in India, out of which like 100 channels are news channels.
Huh.
So,
wow.
I think that's excellent. I really think that's excellent. That takes participatory democracy to a whole new level. And obviously, given the size of India, what is it, 1.3 billion?
That's how many Facebook friends he has.
Oh, and Bill, the best part is that whenever we talk about patriotism and nationalism, we just have to spend 1 rupee, and we will easily be able to collect 1 billion every day.
But I do have a question.
Because
I do have a question, Ankit.
Okay, Jim.
Coach Kumar, what is this drive for power? What's the spiritual background on this? Because we need to have, it seems that we elect people that are power driven, and that brings both positive and negative spiritual qualities along with it. So maybe you can explain to me, because I never understood for myself why you would want to be in that position. Who would want to be president right now, unless it's this power drive? Is that the explanation?
Yeah, that's what I written in the chat, that politics here in India, or maybe in other parts of country also, more than welfare driven, it is more of power and ego driven, wherein you want to stay in and everybody like everybody bow down to you. That is what the physical appearance of a person wants, that everybody's praising them and following them. So even like my brother teases me that way, that you know a lot of spiritual stuff, why don't you go to our hometown, which is a small village, and become a god lady, and everybody will bow down to you. So that's how, like, things, even starting from becoming a god man or a god woman to a politician or a president of a small society, wherein like there are 1,000 flats and about 3,000 people living in one complex. Still, there also it is driven by the power, because uh, we divide all these yugas into four. We are right now into Kali Yuga, which we call, wherein the power will become the region of we call it Kalka. How do we explain this, Ankit? Like the region of vanishing away of something or someone, that way. So I'm not getting the exact word for that, but it means that the power will, when the power stays in your head, it will become the reason of your death. So,
and basically, if you want to, know more details, what Anandamai was saying, that you have to watch a lot of series on Netflix, Hindi series. You'll get to know what is power all about, because there are a lot of series about politics and power, and how a political leader conquer the world or conquer a particular state or a city, and he runs that city, with his own hands or with his own people and goons and all that stuff. But also, I would like to add one more thing, that why we have leaders, because we want them to be a leader, and then we, after a point of time, we regret that why we opted that person to be a leader. And once that person become a leader, he thinks that he will hit a home run every time he wants to hit a home run. That means whatever he does, whatever policy accountability, he wants to get back a lot of wealth and money in different forms. And that's why, we have never discussed, but we should discuss that, how political leader, when they start their career and when they end their career, how come they become so rich around the world? It's not just about India, around the world.
Yeah.
They just give, they just get their own federal salary and whatever it is. But still they are multi-rich, and I've known, people in different parts of the world, and US as well. And no one talks about that, because once they are, they stepped out, it's like, okay, sympathy, and then people say, okay, it's now time to cool it off and look for the new leader.
Yeah.
Yes, Kim.
I think Jung-Hwa had a question, and then I also think that Bill had a question. So I think Jung-Hwa was next.
So I don't want to spend a long time on this, because I want to hear what Bill has to say, which would be more articulate. My own take on things is that there's a constant need for projection of our unexamined selves. And sometimes there's manipulation of that projection, right? So that is the danger. If we can just promote positive parenting and positive psychology for everyone.
Thank you.
We would
Bill, it's on you.
Well, actually, I had an observation, and then I was going to send it to you, Jung-Hwa, but don't mind me. I will go with my observation and my question, and that is that in many respects, it seems to me, because I've thought a bit about this, is it that in a holistic approach, say from your point of view, that the holding power for them becomes enmeshed with their DNA as their reason for being, and that they get lost, such that, as Ankit cited, they get to a point where they think that everything they say and everything they do is sacrosanct. And that's when we, the people that are governed, start to look for different leaders. But I'm wondering, and I appreciated that it might result from a projection of the unexamined self or the unexamined life as inspiration. But do you think that along the way, what starts out as good intentions and getting involved and being a contributing member of society suddenly gets intertwined with their ethos, becomes the reason for their existence, and then spurs the craving for ever additional power? And Grandmasters, please.
Well, I just wanted to ask you one thing that everyone knows in the world, that there's a concept called insider trading. Okay? Is there any concept of insider politics, where a political person influence and help people to create a lot of wealth around the world?
Yes, there is. But I'll defer to our other panelists, Ankit.
Before we get to folks deferring and everything, this is Medical Friday, so I'm actually going to bring it back to a medical question. Isn't that a rare concept and everything? But that being said, and it's actually going to be directed toward Coach Kumar and Jung Hwa. But and Kim brought it up earlier. We were talking about the police and the relationship between the police and society. And sometimes there's this concept called herd mentality. And I think that there's a lot of that going on right now in the world, because I don't know how many of you are familiar with a case called Kitty Genovese. She was a woman that was abused many decades ago. And from that abuse, a lot of folks saw her being abused and they did not act on it. So there was that whole concept of there was a fear of reacting to what was going on, and they chose not to react for whatever their survival reasons were. So I was just wondering if both of you, from a standpoint of both the spiritual growth and the psychological growth, could talk about that herd mentality. So I will defer first to Jung Hwa, and then if Coach Kumar wants to jump in, we'll go there. But I definitely know that that's something that I think is even going on now. But I'd love to hear Jung Hwa's thoughts on that.
So, as a woman of color, I think the Kitty Genovese case was a stark example of what happens in misogynistic cultures, right? So that's the danger. Unfortunately, her neighbors, I think this was in New York, they refused to help her because, one, they didn't know what was going on, or they were afraid, or both. And unfortunately, it's still going on every day, everywhere, whether we like it or not. And human trafficking is the #1 problem. In fact, it takes place on many different levels. So I'm very concerned about modern slavery, modern trafficking, especially of young women, young men, babies sometimes. This is a huge problem that's ongoing. And it's a complex spiritual, emotional parenting issue that has to do with how we parent. How do we treat our emotional selves? How do we raise people in our world?
Yeah. Coach Kumar, did you have anything you wanted to add to what Jung Hwa said?
Yes, so I agree completely with what she's saying, because as you asked about the herd mentality, so it also comes as a community consciousness, like what is, or community conditioning, that what is being transferred from one generation to the other generation. So, for example, I come from an eastern state of India where crime, like the regular crime, is on a very higher rate. Earlier, it was like 10 years ago. It's still there, but not at the higher rate. So from my grandmother to my mother to me, it was taught that after 6 o'clock you should not stay out, and that is what I have been conditioned to believe. And that's when a small thing happens after, like at 6:15 or 6:30 in the evening, I said, oh, my mother was right. And then I will condition my daughter or my son in that way. So that's how, and she's saying it very correctly, that how do we condition our children, and how do we change the conditioning time to time, and teach them how to see everyone equally and not as like gender biased or color biased or anything.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with. Jim, you had something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I have a couple of things I want to say. And one is though this is Medical Friday, we should not make the mistake that medicine is all about the body, because we also need to include mental health and spiritual well-being as well. These are all components to being healthy and happy. And the other thing I wanted to get back just briefly to the idea of politics, because there is so much politics in chess, and people are always surprised to hear that. But I say that politics is so vicious because the stakes are so small. And I wanted to get back to what Bill was saying and what Ankit was saying, is when these politicians in these competitive elections become elected to the executive boards of the various federations, they start to think that they know everything about everything. Even though they have some skills in this area, they think that it now applies to this area, which they really know nothing about. But they think because they are in a position of power that they have the right to weigh in on subjects they know nothing about, rather than delegate to those who have expertise and bring them on board. And I see this in real-time politics as well. And so I want to talk about the reason that these types of people get into the political world. What's wrong with their mental health?
Yep, I think Ankit has something he wanted to add as well, and then Kim has rejoined us.
No, I just wanted to add that when we talk about professional careers, we talk about taking a lot of certificates and still learning while we're in the professional world. Nowadays we have a lot of online courses and certificates, be it finance, be it medical, be it anything. I mean, in fact, sports people also take a lot of courses and try to optimize their things. But why don't we have certificates for politicians? I mean, if suppose I wanted to be a politician and I won an election and then I'm considered as one of the health minister, but I don't have any health degree. So why can't I just gain some certificates and understand the healthcare system so that I can be able to solve some problem? Because as a election or as a minister or as a person, I know about health, but as a minister, what is required, I don't know anything about that. So why can't we have like short-term courses for politics or politicians around the world, and maybe they can learn each other and they can have those courses now virtually as well. I mean, it's not that you have to go to a university to do those courses. So I'm just curious to know if they think. Yes, Bill.
Well, I mean, you raised an interesting question, and you're right. But you're asking it once a person is in a position of authority. But it begs the question: why would somebody who knowingly has no background in health run to be the minister of the health department?
That happens in India. That happens in India. I'm not talking about US, but generally in a lot of countries it happens. I mean, people who are not graduate, who are not, they have never seen school, and they are ministers.
Oh, no. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm not suggesting that is exclusive to India. I mean, here in the United States, since we are the first at just about everything, I think the election of our current president proves that we can support somebody that has absolutely no experience in politics and put them in the highest office, and then trust that he will rely on no one except his own ability to make decisions. So we are clearly an example. Jim, don't you think?
Not only are we an example, Jim, I'm just going to, and Jim's got a question as well, and I'm going to go divert to Jim, but I was just going to say, not only are we an example, but we've also got folks in office that are like in the, I hate to put it, but they're in like the wrong job, because you're talking about like some of the issues around housing and things of that nature. So the person that actually runs our housing issues should actually be our Surgeon General, because many folks know that, the person that's involved in housing, I guess at some point, Bill, he supposedly lived in a housing neighborhood. At least that's the story that they try to put out there and everything. But there's no doubt that Ben Carson was a master surgeon. So like I said, it seems to me that it would have been more logical for him to be, the director of one of the health departments like the Surgeon General, instead of the job that he's currently got. But I did see somebody else, I think it was Jim, that had his question and wanted to ask us something. And then I'll defer it back to you, Bill.
Now, I was just going to respond to Bill's question to me. It was. I think we elected someone, and we elected his gut rather than his brains, and than his ability to delegate. So he bases his decisions on what his gut tells him. So it's purely emotional, and it's not rational. So when we keep expecting it to be rational, we keep getting disappointed. So what we have to tamp down is our own expectations. He's not going to change. He is the way he is. We must accept that, but we must also recognize it, be aware of it, and ask ourselves, do we want to elect a gut as president of the United States?
That visual is horrible, Jeff. It's just like, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here God, for a president, and please, nobody make a cartoon out of this. But I want to add something. I think, and Bill might correct me on this, or everybody else might, but I think the Americans were looking for some sort of absolution for their own problems, and they wanted somebody else to take over their problems rather than take on their own problems themselves. And Trump offered this because he is a bit of a bully. He pushes things aside. But the Americans wanted somebody to say, hey, I'll take care of all of this for you. I'm going to push everybody around for you. You don't have to do anything. But that's the worst thing anyone can do for their child, for anyone, is to say, I'm going to take care of everything for you. You don't have to do anything, because now you make people a little lazy. They are not doing their fiduciary duties to society or for their communities. So I think that's what people were looking for, and they thought Trump could offer that. And that's concerning, as well as, where our healthcare system is. I would have thought, given, some of what Trump was campaigning on, that our healthcare system would have been lifted up somewhat a little bit better, but it wasn't. It was left to struggle and get even more sick, as my friend has mentioned here today. Thank you. And we'll let's take a look at some of those issues, right? Today is definitely medical day, and let's talk about some of those concerns. Even in India, I'm sure you guys have concerns about your medical care, your health care systems. The political care system doesn't care, okay? Political is people of low intelligence, okay? Taking on infinite control system. Okay, that's what it is. Spell it out. People of low intelligence taking infinite control of our system. And we need to take control. The problem is us, not so much always them. We blame them for our problems, but we need to step up to the plate. We need to tell them what we need to have happen. And we're not doing it. We're relying on them to do the things that we should be doing. They should be working for us, not ruling us. We've kind of misconstrued this whole thing. And I love when Bill says, from dictatorship to diplomacy. Let's re-look at ourselves, reevaluate what we're doing. And who do you really want in office? Do you want somebody who's going to bring on, okay, I taught the healthcare system this week. They're all going around spreading this around. The nurses loved it. Do you fire the firemen and then rehire them after the fire? Okay. Do you? Is that how you run your system? Well, that's how we ran our pandemic system, right?
And that's how we rule the world, actually. It's the women who are hired time and time again to lead us out of crises.
Yes.
What you're saying, Kim, makes perfect sense. And I just want to clarify that people of all intelligences elected Trump, especially those who are savvy. And I do think that we tend to maybe listen and wait too much what people say rather than what they do. If we can follow the words of Oprah paraphrasing, I think it was Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, she said talks, but I say show, believe them. And if we actually looked with our critical thinking skills at how Trump composed himself in the past, we would probably not have had much hope for him to do well in this presidency. However, the propaganda is huge, and they use that, right? They manipulated the public. So I think that people of all intelligences wanted the best for him, and that's why we elected him. I just think that
that's well put.
Very interesting.
Yep, very well put and everything.
Thank you so much. That was beautifully, eloquently put. And you're right. People of all levels of intelligence put him into office. but we all do that. Hindsight's always 100% backwards. I don't care what anyone says. It's not just, it's 2020. If you look back,
don't say 2020.
No, they say 2020 hindsight, but I know you got a thing against the year 2020, but it is called 2020 hindsight. I must break in with some breaking news from the world of Facebook. I just heard from our friend Zach, and Zach is at home recovering, but he just sent me a text note that he has also heard from Dr. Anthony. Dr. Anthony is doing well. Her lights are off, but she is doing all right. So that is our breaking IBM TV news. So she is doing well.
IBM family is doing well.
I invited Dr. Anthony on the show today, so she might pop in if she has a power. But she's trying to help a lot of people in Louisiana. I think, especially the elderly people, how she can help her and make them sustainable, because they have a very bad hurricane happened. I think a couple of days back, and that's what news from Dr. Anthony.
Awesome. You know what? Zach and I were like 19 floors away from each other for 2 days.
Wow.
Like, I was checked in right on the same day he had surgery. I was checked in that morning. I was there at the same facility for some tests that day, and I thought I would sneak in to see him until they put me in the ER. But I was so like, I'm going to come up and see you. But they had stuck me in an IV, and I couldn't wander.
But you know something, that we all were there in spirits in the same hospital.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So that was so cool. But we were laughing about the fact that we were just we've never met in person, right? And I kept trying to see if I could snag a doctor's jacket and run up and see him. But it was interesting that we were that close, right? We were just, and you could tell we were both on a lot of drugs. I told him one day we're going to sit down and we're going to have a beer and we're going to read our thread because, because
Kimberly, I told you to take an Uber because you were on drugs, and you said Zach's my Uber driver.
I can't. Zach's my Uber driver, and he's upstairs.
But shout out to you, Mark, for doing the due diligence, contacting Zach to contact Dr. Anthony, because she was in this Hurricane Laura trail, and just so happy to hear that she's well. Even without electricity, she's well.
And I have to say something, and I mentioned this the other day. Why didn't they call it Hurricane Polo? Marco was first and then Polo. I mean, we're not.
Oh, it was Laura.
Sense of humor here, right?
Yeah.
But nobody was thinking ahead. But Hurricane Laura definitely has devastated the country there in the what I call the Low Country. The beautiful, beautiful Low Country has been hit harsh before with Katrina. One thing I love about down there is the universities are fantabulous. I sit on one of the board of universities down there as well as up here, and USM, and they spend a lot of their time and resources studying how they can help people in evacuation situations like this, because they do get hit so hard with the hurricanes. So my prayers are with my friends and family that are down there, including Dr. Anthony. So that was good news to hear. One of the things we're doing technology-wise is we're looking at a particular kind of service. It's a special technology where we can still get Wi-Fi without having to depend on GPS, which is still landline type services. You think it's all mobile and air, but it still relies on towers. But there's a new kind of technology that we're working on that we don't even have to rely on that. And we are working on that so that we can get the Wi-Fi signals without having to worry about the landlines. But one thing's for certain, if we're still using copper lines, they don't rot, and they're so well coated that during a hurricane, as long as the networks are above ground enough, above the water, they should still be working. So hopefully the communication lines will be brought back up real fast. So, but anyway, it's interesting. We had this conversation last night about redundant technology. And the reason why I do talk about this is because the medical system relies on technology, right? For communications. They rely on that telecommunications for saving lives. That's how they communicate. out in the field to save lives, to bring people in. So we need to keep all of that going. And just a tip for people: don't overbear the telecommunication lines with a lot of unnecessary calls right now. During this time, this is a public service announcement. Please don't do that. Leave the lines open for the emergency systems, because if we're overwhelming them with our, need to talk friendly, then they can't do their job because the systems are down. So please keep the lines open. And
it's interesting that you bring that up and everything, because I remember doing, this was many decades ago, 9/11, and Bill probably remembers this as well, that when that crisis happened and everything, and those towers were hit and the other parts were going on, many of us have friends around the world, around New York, and many parts of the world also have friends here in the US. So I remember that we kind of flooded the phone systems, because I know I was guilty of that. I was trying to reach friends of mine that lived in New York City at the time, trying to see whether they were safe, whether they were all right, how they were coping with this tragedy that was going on. So I think the natural inclination is for us to kind of like try to reach out to friends, like, the temptation is to reach out to not just Dr. Anthony, but other friends in Louisiana and Texas. But you're right, we need to be very cautious about that and give time for the system to actually, and I mean the telecommunication system, to actually not get swamped. Because I remember way back in 9/11, I was one of those guilty of trying to do that. I know that Bill, from a political standpoint, knows that there were a number of people, probably trying to reach folks that he knew in DC, New York, and other places like that during that time and other disasters. Bill, you probably got friends in Louisiana. Kim alluded to Hurricane Katrina. You probably did like I did. You probably tried to reach folks during that time. So this is very much a great statement that you made, and I appreciate you making that as almost like a public service announcement for those that are watching. There are other ways that you might try to reach your friends and other things, or just wait, because it is very tempting for us to want to reach out to those friends that are in hard-hit disasters, no matter whether those disasters are man-made or natural-made. But definitely it's very much of a temptation for us to do, and we have to be cautious about that. So that's just something I wanted to add to second what Kim was saying.
Well, and I appreciate that. It's the hardest thing to do. Like you said, it's such a natural impulse to make that phone call. I mean, even during 9/11, I was boarding the plane. The people that I was meeting were in New York that morning, and it was so hard for me, but I knew better. I knew not to pick up that phone and call. Instead, I just went home and watched everything unfold on TV and waited. Because back then we didn't have social media. Social media is a really good way to reconnect, utilizing the Wi-Fi networks if you can, to take and offload the weight from the networks themselves. But Bill, what do you have to add to this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our legal counsel here today.
Right. Well, what I can say is that echo or piggyback on Mark's comments. 9/11 is still the anniversary is coming up, and celebrations are going to take place. I lost some friends that day. I remember exactly where I was that day, as I'm sure many Americans do. And we go through these kinds of societal events where there's a shock to the entire society collectively, and there's an instant need for outpouring of support and connectivity. And I think that's partly just our human nature. But I was wondering if one of our guests could answer that in terms of the need to reach out and connect.
So I think, who do we have here? Coach Kumar had to leave, but
Coach Kumar is gone, but Jung is actually very much involved in mental health. So I would love to hear Jung-Hwa's connections of her thoughts of people having to connect.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's what is the silver lining in this pandemic. That's how I discovered social media, because before I was one of those troglodytes who didn't want anything to do with it really, unless someone forced me to be on Facebook and be their friend, because that was one of the only ways that they communicated. I had like 40 friends. I was trying to keep it really low and minimize my contact with social media. So I think the desperation in terms of acknowledging how important communication and relationships are when we have these times of loneliness has inspired actually a lot of us to connect in ways that we never did before. So that's really empowering. I just love this about the pandemic. And of course, we need to support those who don't have those kinds of reaching out skills, right? So that's why your show is so brilliant.
Thank you, Benoit. Hearing that just makes us feel so good. When Ankit and I started this early March, we had I hate saying this. Usually you have a plan, right? But what we said was, we hear so much from our global board. We just need to get it out to the world. Hopefully somebody will listen. And we had no idea where it was going to go. Like, this was one of those things of, let's just get out there and do it. And we did, didn't we? 1 hour, we promised 1 hour a day is what we said. And it turned out to 4 hours a day in like overnight. And I'll never forget when we took the vote to go weekend. It was like that first week that we did this. And I know what the commitment is, because I've been doing TV shows with Nick, and I know how long these days can get. So we took a vote to go ahead and do weekends through COVID. Let's just do it so we can communicate with people. We're at home anyway, so why not? But that makes me feel good. I know it's got to make Ankit feel great too, because that's what we wanted. We wanted people to feel like they weren't alone. That was our first message, wasn't it, Ankit? That was our first message to the world, was please don't feel alone. And we gave them access to call us.
That's how we started, yeah. And in fact, I remember then at that time, there were no restrictions. So I was sitting in a lot of cafes and discussing what's happening in the cafe world and why people are not coming out, because no one knows what's happening. And suddenly the show automatically started, and then people started following us, and how we connected the world. Like, right now, we are broadcasting to like more than 100 countries, and we have like more than 100 people, or maybe 150 people on board talking about all these things. But the time we started, it was you and me and Nick and our team, and then gradually it becomes a bigger family. But I still remember the day we started, I was at Starbucks and I was, broadcasting. And then there were no people. Yeah, there was no one who was there, and we were like, "What's happening?" I don't know. Some more people started. They started concerning about what's happening, and then we showed that laser temperature and all the stuff. So people started knowing that something will happening up, but suddenly there's a lockdown happen, and then things have changed automatically. And like, it's been 6 months since I'm at home. I haven't seen my office since 6 months, and that's the story right now. But whatever we are doing, trying to connect the dots, and we have learned a lot of things during this period, and then we are connected to a lot of people around the world, and that was amazing. I think once we're out of COVID, we have to write a book about the journey of IBM-TV.
I tell you, it was so funny, because I'll never forget him having to do a scanner, and he showed us his scanner and the temperature, and I'm sitting there going, "Why are you at Starbucks? You shouldn't be at Starbucks." "Oh, it's okay. It was so funny, because we were all looking out for each other. But absolutely, I think we need to do a interesting book on our journey for this. And we couldn't be doing this without Nick, who helped.
So Nick needs to unplug and plug it again.
No, I know. My mic's fine. I was just
joking. He was just joking with us. Sometimes I know when he's making it up.
Yeah, my microphone's fine. I was just going, I've already written the book. And the book is already being written as we're doing this crazy thing. Hello.
But it's a great thing. You're doing a great job, Nick.
You know what? I need a Pulitzer Prize winner to put his imprimatur on it. So I'm going to get David K. Johnston to write the official book, even though I'm putting all the stuff together. So when we have a Pulitzer Prize winner, which will be on Monday, on Economics Monday on IBM TV, but also tomorrow, I believe we have the Sharif School of Economics. And since we don't have a doctor in the room, we have at least a guy who has a PhD doctorate, Sharif. So Sharif, welcome to the show.
Prime time somewhere.
Yeah, sometime somewhere. Well, actually, I figured it out. It's about 11:30 p.m. Malaysian time. I got my Malaysian watch on.
Wow. You got your Malaysian watch on.
Hey, Sharif, how you doing?
Yes, I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. So basically, Malaysia today actually is a very good day because I visit different universities, even KLCC, Petronas, Twin Towers, and different places for our business meeting and some of our business deals and activities. So Malaysia open up everything, open up step by step. But today, Malaysian Prime Minister, he declared MCO, Movement Control Order, until 31st December. So this is the things that I think that SOP and everything Malaysian people has to follow. Beside that, but I try to understand. Let's say I visit after 6 months. First time I visit like a KLCC Twin Tower, Petronas Twin Tower. So I saw that every business they are come up with a new setup. Every business, every malls and different malls, especially those who are the Chinese business organization, they come up with a different variety of products and everywhere. So what I understand that Chinese business organizations, especially Malaysia, 80% business actually backed by Chinese organization. So they are trying to overcome from this situation. This is very interesting. And even though I think that after the MCO, maybe we do not find lot of products, a lot of things, maybe scenario will be different. But Chinese business organization, they come up with a lot more variety, different item, different product. Hopefully they want to attract the local community first. They are communicating the local customers and other things. And on the other hand, like international community, because until 31st December, Malaysia has movement control order. I think that tourists and other people cannot come Malaysia until 31st December. So this is one of the things. On the other hand, Singapore and Malaysia, I told you that 80% of their agro-based product they actually import from outside Malaysia and outside Singapore. Most of the agro-based things. So this is another good progression that Malaysia different state. We have 13 states. Especially I do discuss with the Sultan of Terengganu and the different state, and I find that they come up with a very good policy for agro-based projects and agro-based technology. So hopefully soon Malaysia also focus on their agriculture and agricultural product, and as they have a very strong business organization, so hopefully they will after 1 year, hopefully they can overcome from this present situation. This is the good things what I observe from Malaysian economy. But definitely movement control order extended, it's mean we have to be more careful.
Sharif, if you could, I know you got your show going on as well, and I just wanted to know a little bit more about the show, and if you could tell folks what they might learn tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow on the School of Economics, because you're definitely teaching us School of Economics here on IBM TV. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about your show and what we can expect to hear from it very shortly.
Yes. Basically, like I'm planning. Let's say what will happen next 1 month. But issue is that recently, like Malaysia, Singapore, they have very good engagement with the blockchain. Yes. They have very good engagement with blockchain technology and different kind of startup they are growing in Malaysian economy. So I do discuss with them. With them about IBM televisions and other things. They are very excited. Different kind of startup and tech companies from Malaysia, Singapore, and even they are working together with Hong Kong, Australia, and different tech company. So they will join. Beside that, I also communicating with my friends. He is actually just last term he was youth minister in Malaysia, so it's Sadiq Abdul Rahman. So even any of the show he will join. And one thing I just want to share, because he's not my friend, not like that, but for this is the message for the politicians, that there are many young people, many talent people, they are joining in politics. They love their country and they're trying to do something honestly and sincerely. Every politician is not a corrupted people. They are also against corruption. So it's Sadiq Abdul Rahman is a voice of Muslim youth community. You can check, you can Google. He's a very dynamic guy. He also joined with my show. I do discuss is any of the Saturday IBM TV. So because he's very busy with his parliament activities, even he formed a new political party. After he moved from the Mahathir Mohamad party, he come up with the youth political party. So in my show, definitely he gonna discuss what the inner strategy of Malaysian youth community, what the inner things of Muslim community, why he come to the politics, and how he want to change, because still he is a parliament member of Johor Bahru. So this kind of interesting and highly powerful, highly energetic people will join with IBM TV, and that's what I'm sure in Malaysia, Singapore, and many other very important organizations, very important even political organization, business organizations, they already know about IBM TV, and many people observing IBM show, and they're also excited. Hopefully in future they will join.
And not only that, you have a great introduction. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'm just going to play it just briefly. The Sharif School of Now, if economics was only that exciting when I went to school, you know.
Yeah, well, I was trying to figure out because I don't remember economics being that exciting when I was in school either. That's probably why I didn't get like an economics degree. Sharif, I must say that I've got to commend you for your attitude and talk about the youth movement in politics, because I'm a big fan of the youth that are doing things in politics, not just here in the U.S. We hear about the U.S. folks that are in that youth movement, but I've noticed that it is a worldwide youth movement, and a lot of our youth are being engaged. So I know that Bill, I wish he was here so that he could talk about that as well, but I know he had to jet off and deal with some stuff there in DC. So definitely there is a youth movement that's going on, and that's what I've noticed. I don't know if other folks on the panel want to comment on that, or we've even got Bill's information that we want to share as well, because he's
wait a minute. I can
thing.
reach. Wait a minute, Mark. I can reach into cyberspace and bring Bill back. Just give me 1 minute. Oh, there he goes. Okay, right. You guys got to reach
the power of the cyberspace. So, Bill, I was talking about the notices and the power of the youth, because Sharif was talking about the youth movement that is existing worldwide, because there's a number of young politicians that are useful in Malaysia, where he is. And of course, we've talked on here about AOC and other youth leaders. So I just wondered if you could talk to us about this youth movement that we're seeing worldwide. It's not just here in the U.S., it's all over that we're seeing our youth being engaged in politics and social justice. You got to hit your mic.
Bill, you need to unmute.
Okay, I apologize.
That's fine.
First, I want to start with a shout out. There was a bright spot during the Republican National Convention, and there's a young man who's 25 years old who's running for Congress for the first time. He's a Republican, and he's from North Carolina. And he suffered an accident when he was younger, and he's paralyzed from the waist down, so he's in a wheelchair. But an interesting comment that he made during his speech said essentially this, that at the time of the founding of the United States in 1776, James Madison was only 25 years old. And most of the other founding fathers were in their early 30s. So when we look now, and everybody says that you're too young to get into politics, if we look back at least American history, that's actually not true. Now, that's my segue into the larger movement around the world. And you see it across the board, from the environmental activists who recently, a couple months back, was in front of the UN. And it's a powerful movement. And the one thing I do want to point out is that 2020, for all of its downs, a significant up has been the pattern that the young people are leaving as they actually leave, whether it's in the streets or whether it's with speeches or whether it's with voter outreach, whether it's and it takes different manifestations in different countries, but it's collectively saying that we want a different planet and we want a different world. And I'm absolutely fundamentally amazed. I mean, oftentimes when we were young, I'll try it this way. There's an old saying, I remember when I was young, I used to wake up every day and think how I could change the world. Now I wake up and I think, hey, can I change my own diet? And in that regard, the lifeblood of both our societies and the movements really are the young people. And it's significant. You name it. Black Lives Matter, environmental, political change, social equality, across the board. And there's one final piece that I want to add to it, and that is the growing, I'm not going to say multiculturalism, I'm going to say mosaic that is becoming our globe. Because it used to be, and as one example, it used to be in the United States, kids had a white parent and a black parent, then they were, biracial. But now the kids are acknowledging all of their heritage, and they're coming up with self-identified names, including all of their heritage. The most significant one was when Tiger Woods called himself Cabalation. And I think that is changing the mindset of the younger generation, because they're now thinking globally. And they're not just thinking, I'm pigeonholed here or I'm pigeonholed there. They see it as a multifaceted kind of existence, and that's how they're approaching society. So it's exciting.
It's very exciting. I've actually got a friend, and you're talking about the way that the young people identify themselves. She's got he has a young daughter. I think the daughter might be in their teen or pre-teen years and everything. And they basically identify themselves by all of their racial identities, because they are of Indian descent, and they are also of like some multi-European descent. So the way that they describe themselves is that they are Indian, I believe it's Greek, and some of the other European societies. I don't remember all of them, but they named like 3 parts of society that are part of their heritage. And then they also add that they're a Yankee fan. So they were raised in order to believe that being a Yankee was very important in order for part of their identity. So I know that a number of folks, including Lynn, would be upset because he would like them to be maybe the fans of another team. So I don't know if he's approving of them being a Yankee fan or not. But Lynn, do you think it's okay for them to be a Yankee fan as part of their identity? Lynn's having a headache. He doesn't feel it right now. So but that is how they identify themselves.
This might be the only time Lynn and Jim are not both using the pain patch together. Lynn is using the pain patch, and Jim is holding up the Yankee patch. So, I mean, I'm not sure what happened here, but can we get back on board and come together?
Yes. All right.
I'm gonna keep a couple of fingers separated and coming together.
We'll come together for up to a point.
Up to a point, but there's only
come together up to a point.
So far I can go. Anyway,
I'm so glad that you're here with the Dollar Store, and of course we want you to talk about this because earlier we had our great leaders in terms of Ankit, Nick, and Kim following us and everything, and I'm sure they're back there listening. But that being said, we do know that the Dollar Store is a very important part of the whole mission of what we're doing. Y'all support the mission, so I just would love you to talk about the Dollar Store and how folks can get involved with the Dollar Store. So I'm tossing it over to you now, Lynn.
Okay, great, good. Thank you so much. So my family owns an online dollar store. Yes, it is online. You don't have to go out of your house, and we'll talk about that in a second. You can see the link on the TV, but if you're just listening, it's family.dollarstore.com. But we make it really easy for you to get there. Just go to IBM TV, click on the big green button. And it's big and round, so if you happen to be colorblind, you don't have to worry about that. Just click on the button, and it'll take you right to the website. We have over 4,300 items. We keep adding because we don't want Mark to get to the end. I know that he got above 4,120 items, so we keep adding items because we want him to get to the end and look at all of them. But anyway, so we have quality items. It's really interesting. I was just on a Zoom talking to a fella about the dollar store, and he said, well, I like the dollar store, but a lot of people think it's cheap. Well, it's not cheap. We're less expensive, but we have quality items. And that's what we want you to know. So we have things from places like Johnson & Johnson, Fisher Price, Sesame Street, Dove soap, Dial soap, Crest toothpaste. I mean, lots of quality items. And we are a lot less expensive in many cases than you're going to find by going to places over the counter. So take some of the beauty items, for instance. When you look at the beauty items, there's one that's a line remover, and there's nobody here on the panel that cares about lines, although I guess Jim might, but but he's the only one. So it's Genesis Solutions Line Free Lift. On Amazon, that product sells for $67. We sell it for $4.99. And Amazon charges you shipping. Now, let me talk about shipping because I know Jim knows and Bill knows. Well, we all know because I've seen every one of you on here so many times. If you can't remember what I'm saying, I apologize. But anyway, we can ship anywhere in the United States. We ship for free if you order over $25. If we want to ship to Sasha, we have a problem because as Sasha knows, there's border control between the U.S. and Canada. So we have trouble shipping stuff to our daughter who lives not far from Sasha in Toronto. Now, it would be very prohibitive to ship to Sharif in Malaysia. So we don't yet ship there, but we are going to start, hopefully soon, being able to do stores in India, Malaysia. Willie Hill keeps asking for it in Australia, so we're going to ship there. But think about the stuff we have. And look at what Jim is doing. He has his mask on, okay? Well, and he also has bought some more CBD product. And one thing is we need Jim to be careful because he's got to have his mask on while the show's on, because most of us are very concerned about getting viruses in our computer. And so we want Jim to be able to keep his mask on so we don't get computer viruses.
That's not the real reason.
Oh, come on. But look, these masks, okay, 50 of them for $25. I mean, you can't get this in any store. So Jim, when you weren't here the other day, I was asking Bill to do this. I think actually I'm going to ask you to do this because Bill was having problems doing it on his phone. So we have a program of gift tokens, okay? And gift tokens are just like gift cards. For somebody who signs up to become a customer, they're going to get $5 worth of gift tokens. So if they order a box for $25, it's going to ship for free, and it's only going to cost them. What is it going to cost them, Jim? Because they got $5 worth of gift tokens?
40 cents.
40 cents a mask instead of 50, because it's going to cost them $20. But if you sign up between now and midnight on Monday, you're going to get another $5 worth of gift tokens. And if you get another $5 worth of gift tokens, now what's it going to cost? Okay, it's going to cost 30 cents a mask. I mean, you can't get masks. And these masks are triple layered, okay? And if you turn them backwards, the blue is out so that you're protecting the people from you. So what we want Jim to do is to keep blue out all the time. And then for those of us who want to be protected from Jim, we turn the blue inside, and we are protected from the people on the outside. But as we said before, we have lots of CBD products. We have CBD patches. Jim gets them because he's a chess player, and he gets tendonitis from all those heavy chess pieces moving him around the board. But then when he goes to play Sasha, I think he has a mental block playing Sasha, so he knows he's going to have pain ahead of time. So he puts it on his head. Now, I need to know in advance when he's going to talk about the Yankees, because for me, that's big time pain. So I'm going to wear mine. But then I mean, we have lots of items, 4,300 plus items, but here's the one you have to join the club.
This is for Kim.
Yeah, this is for Kim. We have the Minion Napkin Club. So here she comes with her Minion napkins. Okay. I'm afraid to take my package apart, because if I do, I might use these and then you're gonna throw me out of the club. I just have to get more, of course.
Well,
but anyway.
I order them in bulk because my family loves them. They
good.
Plus, they're good quality. They're that thick napkin. They're not the cheap quality. Again, that's something I love about the Family Dollar.
Good quality, inexpensive prices,
and
Lynn, you can take one out. Just open it up. Just one out.
Just one out. Okay. So here, I missed a couple of things. And, I know Bill's been recording this, so he knows all the things. He knows to ask all the right questions to prompt me. But
well, one thing that you forgot is the 5 things that it helps you with and everything. Because I know that you usually use those 5 fingers to talk about some things that are going on with you.
Let me get
5.
Yeah, before we get to the 5, we're donating 100% of our profit to Money Masters PBS through the end of September. Okay. And so it's important, but there are 5 aspects. And if everybody if people don't know what the mission is, let me mention it. The mission of Money Masters PBS, which owns IBM TV, is to provide, to reduce the gap between poverty and financial sustainability by providing financial education that results in financial fitness. Okay. So think about this. There are 5 aspects. Number 1 is we'll do it from here. You try and save money whenever you can. And when you save money, number 2 is you have money now that you can spend on the necessities. But 3, if you save properly, you're going to have money left over so you can invest it. And you can go on to Sasha's show on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, and Sasha's going to show you how to invest. But then number 4, you have enough money to pay your taxes. And that's very important, as Kimberly learned early on. And number 5, you can pay forward by giving to your favorite mission. Okay. All right. But here's the thing. When you shop at the dollar store, and that's all 5, and you think everything is done in 5s, and it is. We get $5 worth of gift tokens, $5 more worth of gift tokens, and all that kind of stuff, and 5 aspects of financial fitness. Well, here's aspect number 1. When you go on the dollar store, you save money, but you're also doing number 5 because you're paying forward by allowing us to give our profits to Money Masters PBS. So, it's a win-win for everybody. We look forward to more people signing up to become customers of the store. And we encourage you to do one thing when you shop. That's join the Minion Napkin Club. So, Bill, you had a question.
Yes, because we actually have our resident expert on the Family Dollar store, although I think that his pedigree is slipping. Mark, you failed to mention the food and the other products that we get for the students going back.
That's right. There's some amazing products. You're right. I should have been on top of things.
No, Mark. This is a helping hand.
Help
you, Mark. Because we have the cookies, we have the noodles, we have a number of other things. But Lynn, if I'm correct, if I recall correctly, on a day when Mark decided not to be helpful because he wasn't here, didn't you add more products to the website? You're over at 4,300 items.
We're over 4,300 items, and we did. There are 2 reasons why we add the products. It's because people request them.
Right.
And Mark, I'm sorry, that's item number 1. But number 2, Bill, do you know what the second reason is?
No, I do not.
We don't want Mark to be able to get to the end. We want him to have to keep looking.
Make it bigger.
Mark, now this is where I hand it over to you, my helping hand. How many of the amazing quality products on the Family Dollar store have you been able to get to?
Well, I've actually got a little bit further than they think that I have. I've been actually watching more and more. So I hate to tell you this, but you might have to add some more because I think I've got the last time I counted was 2,500. So I still got 1,800 more to go. So I've got many more that I've got to get. So I'm trying to catch up with you. So, but I know you, Lynn. You're going to add many more. I'm kind of like feeling like you ever watch those experiments where the mice or the hamster can't ever get to the end because they keep adding things. And that's the way that I'm feeling because I think you're doing this intentionally. You're kind of like trying to stretch me out. So like I said, I'm just going to get tired and never get to the end. I think that's kind of the plan, Lynn. So
You
I
learned
think
marketing
that's the
and
whole
physical
goal. So
hard
I
knocks.
might have to like figure out how to get to the end. I might have to see if I can get some like really quick Olympic sprinter speed, and so I can just run down to the end and get to the end of the list and everything. But or either that, or I might have to get Kim to help me, and she'll like work the list from the back end, and I'll come from the front, and we'll meet in the middle, and that way we'll get to the full list. So this is my new strategy. So Jim goes from the back, I come from the front, and Jim gives me that look like that's cheating. That's not fair.
So I want to repeat one thing, and then I realized I made a mistake, and I want to correct myself. Remember, I said we only deliver within the United States, but then I forgot because we also deliver to the Socialist Republic of Northern California.
Thank goodness.
So we do deliver to a different country. Just so you, Ankit. Hi, Ankit.
Hi, how are you? So, Lynn, I have a question right now that during the Hurricane Laura, are you driving in that area? Because of hurricane, a lot of people are not able to get their groceries on time.
Oh,
So do you have-
hurricane area. Well, remember this, that we'd be better off not going there because they really don't want people. They don't even want people going back to their homes at the moment, so that they can start repairing the infrastructure. But if those people will stay out of their area and send us an address, we can certainly deliver to places where they can pick up the food or can pick up essential items. So I think that's a very good question. But if you want to go to Port Charles, don't think we would want to deliver there. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
I think what I was trying to say is that during this disaster management, we should come up with a plan where people can get groceries and we can supply them at a place or at a community level, so that at least they'll get the groceries on time. Because during this time, it's difficult for them to survive. They can't go to their home, and how will they? Manage those basic stuff which is easily accessible, but because of hurricane, it's not. So, I think we should come up with a plan, and that could be a game changer for groceries as well, because they're talking about everything, but there is nothing, a concept where they can supply to a common place from where people will get their basic groceries on time.
Well, that's a good plan. The question is, of course, well, actually, I will have that conversation with people at Corporate Dollar Store. So, Jim, go ahead.
Yes, I was going to ask you if people can sign up from other countries and send their pre-tokens to someone in a different country.
Yes.
Yes. There is a. We have blocked. We blocked all of your IP addresses, Jim, so people are not going to be able to give you the extra tokens. Okay. So there are people. Ankit has a sister who lives about 20 miles away from me in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So he can send the gift tokens to her. He has a brother in Maryland, so he can send it to his brother. And I know that I'm sure Sharif knows people here in the United States, can send stuff to people here in the United States just by signing up. And Okechukwu from Nigeria, from Lagos, Nigeria, he signed up, and he has family who live here. So he can send the tokens, and it's just a way to encourage people to to start shopping at the store. but you don't want to give them to Jim. Please don't give them to Jim.
You can't give the
No.
token to Jim.
Anybody but Jim.
I'll send him
Anybody but Jim. That's the new rule. Anybody but Jim. I do have a question, and it comes back to we've had all kinds of great conversation going on, and Therese jumped in. But there's a certain gentleman that's been on our panel, and he's been very quiet. I don't know if he doesn't feel like talking medicine. I don't know if he doesn't feel like talking about some of the other things. But I need to toss it off to Sasha. So Sasha, tell us what's going on in your world and about the economics and things of that nature. Because I think that you're over there secretly plotting to make a lot of money, and I need that money to help me. So if that's the case, I need a good tip. So Sasha, give me a good tip right now.
He's been trading and making, while we're talking, he's been trading and making money.
Yes, you're right, Nicholas. Thank you very much. Today is Friday, and actually today all of options that I sold previously, they do all expire worthless. And somebody's playing music to help me out, is what I say.
We're working on it.
Listen, whether it's a good one or not so good.
We're working on background music at IBM TV. It's part of our business plan.
Nice. I like this music. Let's listen to it.
Okay.
So it's an upbeat musical score for you, Sasha. As is the Dow going up, or how's the Russell 2000?
Russell 2000 is up, same as Dow, about 1/3%.
Oh, okay.
So is that a good thing or is that a bad thing, Nick? Because I don't quite know economics in that sense of knowing the Dow. I know I should know my stocks because, well, actually, I don't own any stocks. Should I buy a stock? Maybe that's the question I should ask.
Well, you got to go to Sasha's show, Investing with Sasha, on Wednesday, and he'll show you how to do it right to make money. But he also has Chess Stars, which is tomorrow. Let us know what's going on Chess Stars tomorrow.
On Chess Stars tomorrow, we have a contest. It will be a 2 games match between. I'm sorry, this music distracts me. Why don't you ask me that question when the music will stop? Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
So we shut off the background music and let's hear about Chess Stars for tomorrow.
No, you're all set, Sasha. There's no more background.
Yeah, I think the music has ended, Sasha.
Yes.
Well, let's people talk, Lars.
Okay.
Okay. So tomorrow we have a chess contest. It's a 2 games match between 2 grandmasters. One is Mikhail Marin from Romania. Another one is Suat Atalik from Turkey. So the oh, thanks, music stop. Okay, in any case, people can watch the games in real time, listen to commentaries of experts. By the way, tomorrow, Michael Hofer will provide commentaries. He's a very colorful character. He does a football show as well. And we will have opportunity for people who are watching the contest predict each and every move. And there will be cash prizes, hundreds of dollars to winners. The participation is free for all. People can actually register on Chess Stars. This way they can participate in predict the moves, win cash prizes, and so on. People who want just to enjoy it and just watch it, they can do it on IBM TV. It will be fully translated by IBM TV, starting at 2:30, and the games will start at 3. So that's an ideal way for people who don't play chess or don't know how to play chess. They can watch it on IBM TV and just enjoy themselves, have a nice drink, and just spend some time.
Does it cost any money to be able to enter Chess Stars to win money?
No.
Anything?
It costs only me any money to do that. Other people can do it all for free.
Okay. So anybody who's listening to IBM TV can go to Chess Stars, register. You predict the moves that the grandmasters are making, and if you predict and you bet wisely, you actually win money, and it doesn't cost you anything to do it. Then once you win the money, then you go to investing with Sasha, and he'll show you what you should invest it in. So we do have a route to success. Yeah,
and I think with that segment, we should just put the intro up so that our viewers would know that what is the Chess Start show all about. So here we go.
Okay, so make sure you register.
Nick, it's time to move to investing with Sasha. So after Saturday, you have to join on Wednesday to learn how to invest with the money you won from the Chess Stars. Here we go.
Yeah, and that's a great show for those who haven't seen
it. And after that, Nick, once you earn money, once you invest, it's time to celebrate Peace Day. So here, the Peace Day.
I'm Bill Tresvant with IBM TV. On September 21st, 2020, IBM TV, along with our partners, will be celebrating World Peace Day. For me, this is a day of reflection, outreach, and mutual support as we think of and act in ways that we can build a better tomorrow for everyone who lives on this planet. So, I ask that you join us in celebrating World Peace Day. Remember, September 21st, 2020. Join us here on IBM TV. I'm Bill Tresvant.
He didn't say good morning, good afternoon, and good night. We'll have to redo the whole thing. And Bill has to go, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
No, it was a great job he did. By the way, that was just an amazing announcement that you did for us, Bill. So definitely World Peace Day is going to be a great thing. As far as the chess, I'm thinking that I might have to get you, Nick, to be like my backup and tell me the moves so I can win some money. So I know you play chess, so I need a backup
but see,
person.
like Sasha says, it's democracy. You're guessing their moves, and anybody can actually do it. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't matter what skill level you are. You just guess, okay, I think he's going to do this, or he's going to do that. So it's a little bit different. Oh, Dr. Tula has joined us. Dr. Tula.
Well, Nick, I can guess Grandmaster Adelik's moves much better than I can guess Grandmaster Shirov's moves.
Jim, you're not good at guessing because we tried to have you guess stuff on the online dinner party and you were like way off. You were not having a good time.
I got it wrong. I was way off.
No, he's not.
I admit, I'm not a good
you
guesser.
know that, I mean, we all are very excited and eager to see a match between Sasha and Nick. Which could be commentary by our own Jim. I mean, I think we can plan that match in frame two on IBM.
I love this idea. Yeah, the match between Nick and Sasha. Are you down for it, Sasha?
I wanted to mention one thing. I know a couple of people who won prizes, not first or second prizes, but some prizes, a little bit of money, still count. What they did, they went always with the first line of Stockfish. So they predicted only first move of stockfish. For some reason, this strategy doesn't win first or second, like top price. I don't understand why, but I think it's a reliable strategy, and who knows, maybe one day it will win first or second prize.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Nick, it's almost an hour, so it's time to introduce all our panelists. So,
Oh, yes. We're at the top of the hour for those who joined us at IBM TV at the top of the hour. And we have some background noise coming, but I'm not sure where it's from.
I think it's
somebody eliminated.
Okay.
Good. Okay, then I can do the introductions. Okay, Ankit Kandewar from New Delhi, who has his 1.3 billion Facebook friends in India, director of IBM TV. Kim Calhoun, who's actually with IBM TV, a senior director in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and also sits on the board of computer science at North Carolina State University. The person who sits on a chess board, but not any board at any major university, is Jim Eade, who is with the Socialist Republic of Silicon Valley and the Eade Foundation in San Francisco, California. Then we have Lynn Shepard with the Family Dollar Store, our sponsor out of Pennsylvania. Bill Trezevant in Washington, D.C., who's our Washington correspondent, who will shortly be starting our show, American Politics. The people around the world who want to follow the greatest game on earth, American Politics, will start after Labor Day. Okay, and he also does our Washington Report. From Russia with love, and now in Toronto, is Alexander Starr, who does Investing with Sasha on Wednesday. Great show. And for those who miss it, you can actually go back and watch it. It's posted on IBM TV and see Sasha basically hook horns with a $1 billion investment fund manager. It's quite an exciting thing. Sasha, the individual investor versus the professional investor, only on IBM TV. Well, the individual investor, because the professional investor, his hands are tied, but we'll get to that later. And with that, we also have Mark Lee, who runs the Mark Lee Dinner Show and also this radio show on IBM TV. And he's in the Raleigh-Durham Research Triangle Park of North Carolina. As we move to Malaysia, we see tomorrow morning, there will be the Sheriff School of Economics. It's actually an exciting school. It doesn't make economics boring, out of Malaysia, who's our PhD scholar. And now we have our real doctor. We need to have one. Dr. Tula out of India, and he's going to tell us how he cured coronavirus. So Dr. Tula, welcome to the show. We can't wait to hear from you and listen to how you've cured coronavirus over in India. Oh, he's muted.
You're muted.
You're muted. Unmute. Okay, you're unmuted. Okay, you're good.
So the good thing is the virus never came. The virus never happened. So there is no cure. Right?
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's the easiest way of
Dr. Tula has recently joined the
So wait a minute. If I'm understanding this, it was all a figment of our imagination. It was kind of like one of those old episodes of like the old TV series where we find out that it never really happened and it was just a figment of our imagination. Yes. I'm liking this concept, Dr. Tula. Tell us how this works.
Yeah. So we are dreaming at the moment. So it is a nightmare which we are it is happening with us. And over a period of time, we'll get over with this nightmare, provided we follow the 3 cardinal things which we need to do in our dreams also. One is that wear masks. Number 2 is maintain social distances. And the third is keep on washing your hands. So if we do this, this nightmare will be over soon and we'll have the panacea to all the problems. So we'll have a cure for that.
I love this concept, Dr. Tula. I gotta say that I'm actually a big proponent of it. I think that Bill would be a big proponent as well. It actually reminded me of something that we were talking about earlier, which was 9/11, which I know will be celebrating its 20th anniversary in next September, but a lot of folks will be thinking about that next month and everything. But I remember when that incident happened, I was actually thinking, and I don't know what you thought, Bill, but you were in DC, so you probably thought of it as a real thing. But when it happened, I had remembered the movie War of the Worlds, and there was like a car that went by. So I heard somebody making an announcement. So automatically my mind went to, this must be a really good reality TV series. Of course, I was working at a college radio station at the time, one of their community announcers. So when I got to the station and saw the computer and saw that it was a real thing and it was a reality, I had to shift my focus in order to deal and cope with that reality. But when I first got there and heard that car go by, I'm thinking, hey, I remember War of the Worlds. Is this another episode of War of the Worlds that's happening on somebody's radio station? Because, you know, there's always been a push for there to be more drama on radio. So that's where my mind went when it first happened. I know a lot of other folks might not have had that kind of abstract thought pattern, but y'all know I think differently. Bill, I think you were making a comment, but you're on mute.
Bill is muted, yeah.
I apologize. I was saying, excellent point. But doctor, if I might, while we are in this collective nightmare, sharing it together, is there any news, perhaps, on vaccines from your point of the world?
Yeah, so Bill, actually, so I've been in touch with a lot of people who are basically working with certain, I would say, partners in vaccine in India. So at the moment in India, the prime contenders are only two. So we have Bharat Biotech, which is doing a research with the ICMR, which is basically a research-based body in India. It is it's like CDC. So we have ICMR here, right? So if I were to do an analogy between America and India, so this is one company which is working and they are in phase 2 trial. And then we have basically, there is again one big company in India, which is Serum Institute of India, which is based in Pune. And it is basically in collaboration with the Oxford vaccine, where they are again in phase 2 trials. And I think they've started the phase 3 also in a limited fashion. So at the moment, we are in anywhere in between phase 2 and phase 3 trials. And the good picture emerging from all the quarters is that they are very positive and optimistic that this vaccine is going to work. Now the challenge is on 2-3 counts. One, to get the trial, over as early as possible, which may take a couple of months. But I presume by December we will have news coming in, trickling in, and I presume and hope that it's going to be a positive news. The challenge after that is going to be the production of the vaccine, because at the moment, I cannot collaborate with, absolutely certainty. But what I've heard is that the vaccine people have started making the vaccines, contemplating that they will have the vaccine working. So they've started making it, producing it, but unfortunately, the amount of vaccine production has to be upscaled to a very, very large level. Because if they gave an estimate of around 5 crore vaccines to be produced per month, and if we are looking at that, so I think it will take more than a year for India itself to vaccinate. So it's a long, long haul. So there's going to be a prioritization initially. We know that maybe the politicians will be the first one, then maybe the armed forces will be the second one, doctors and armed forces might go side by side. Then they will have the elderly people who have comorbidities, where the vaccine is going to go. The general population will be at the last to receive the vaccine, especially the young people. And the other challenge is that how long is the effectivity of this vaccine? Because what we hear from this thing is that they're telling that maybe it's going to be anywhere around, with certainty they are not stating, but they're giving a figure of around 3 months. So if that is the case, then that means that we have to revaccinate.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, then they developed the vaccine, but it would be a temporary or a solution, or you need periodic boosters, and so it lasts for a limited period of time, and then you'd have to, and then wow, and that at least in India they are they haven't concluded the tests, but they are beginning to produce what they believe to be an effective vaccine currently. Is that right? Do I have that right?
So on paper, no one is committing that they have started production, but there are whispers going around that there is a decent amount of production, because see, we need to understand this is a gamble which every company which is doing vaccine, and they are pretty much sure that their vaccine is going to work, they are going to take. Because see, if at the last minute they start manufacturing, then it's not possible. Then it's going to take months and months for that to happen. Because please understand, they will have to upscale their logistics, and manufacturing of this vaccine is not an easy job, because we need to understand that in India, they are not going with a pre-filled syringe. It will be a vial which will come with multi-dose vial. This is what has come to my notice, that they're looking at a vial system, not a pre-filled syringe system, where in other countries they're looking at a pre-filled syringe system. So that means one syringe, one shot given and end. In India, it's not going to be like that. It is going to be a vial-based through which multiple people will be inoculated with the single vial.
And Dr. Tula, if I understand you as well, and I think Sasha's got a question as well, but am I hearing people saying that there's actually, like, I think there were 2 strains and now there might be 3 strains. So while we're fighting with the vaccine for one strain, the folks that are trying to work on this are going to have to develop it for multiple strains of COVID-19 or for the virus that exists. So I'm aware of, I think, 3 strains. Is it a possibility that we might even see more strains coming out? So I was just wondering if you could talk to that as well.
Yeah. So Mark, see, when I joined the IBM TV discussions way back earlier, also I had stated very clearly that the virus keeps on mutating. You will have certain changes, because please understand, it also wants to survive. It is a game of survival for the virus also. So unless and until the virus mutates, there are chances that it may not survive. So this challenge is going to happen. And please do understand that we need to understand this: the efficacy of the machine, this vaccine is also not going to be 100%. No company is claiming to have 100% efficacy of this vaccine. My inert guess is that the best case scenario will be a 70% immunity. So that means that if out of 100 people, in 70 people, it gives immunity, I think this is a very good case scenario at the moment.
Yes.
So
Dr. Art has just joined us from North Carolina. Namaste. Dr. Art, what do you see in the USA in terms of vaccines and treatments for the coronavirus?
Well, I may come off a little bit controversial here, because looking at the vaccine and looking at previous attempts at vaccination for coronavirus, the one thing that this virus does is it causes the body to attack its own body through the immune system. So when you create a vaccine, your biggest fear is that the immune system is going to attack the body itself. So I really need proof that this vaccine is not going to attack my patient's bodies through the immune system. That's the one thing you worry about with flu shot, is Guillain-Barré syndrome. And the way this virus attacked is directly through the immune system in its worst way. So my biggest fear is a vaccine may insidiously cause some kind of autoimmune damage in the long run. So I see we're having vaccines probably within the next few months, but you can't tell me that they know in 3 years if this is going to cause amyloidosis that'll lead to Alzheimer's disease, which has happened in previous attempts. So I'm going to be watching. I don't know how quickly I'm going to jump on the bandwagon suggesting this for my patients. I'm going to be more of a watch and wait, look at the evidence, but it's going to take me maybe 6 months to 3 years to know whether this causes amyloidosis for my patients. So for my patients that really need some kind of protection, because they're out there, they're doing jobs that are frontline, and they're willing to take the risk, I'll absolutely give it to them. But right now, I'm just not sure. I need to see more evidence that it's safe.
Yep.
Doctor, are you the only one in the medical field that feels that same way, or is it a group the size? And I guess as a follow-up question, how it occurs to me that when we in the United States find out that there's a vaccine, even if it's a short-term vaccine, and it doesn't offer the protection from the types of issues that you're raising, that nevertheless there'll be a stampede to it. How would we go about educating the American public of the dangers that you highlight?
Well, that's the thing. The last way you want to educate the public is for them to have the problem. For example, we first started out for shingles vaccines. We started with the Zostavax, and we found out, number one, it wasn't as effective as we wanted, and it being a live vaccine, it was dangerous for people on chemotherapy and all those things. So they went back to the drawing board and invented the Shingrix vaccine, which is way more safer and much more effective. I've had 0 of my patients so far, and that's my own observation, that have had the shingles since getting this vaccine. But Zostavax, I was seeing maybe 30 to 40% of my patients still getting the shingles after the vaccine, at the same time taking the risk that it was a live virus vaccine. So sometimes the education comes after the vaccine comes out, and that was even after it was tested by the FDA for years before it was released, when it was the Zostavax. So, we have to warn our patients that this is not going to be a perfect vaccine at the beginning. We're rushing because we need some kind of solution, but at the same time, I can't rush my patients into something that I'm not sure of. So as far as education, we just have to be, we can't be so gung-ho and say this vaccine is going to save everyone and, let us go back out to the movie theaters and everything. I think this is going to be a 3-year process before I feel completely confident in this vaccine.
Dr. Arthur, I wanted to ask you another question as well. And I know that there's some concern in the minority community, and I think it's the minority community worldwide, but definitely the minority community here in the United States, that we definitely want to see the testing go on and things of that nature. But there was the Tuskegee experiment many moons ago, and that still is something that folks in the minority community are aware of and are afraid of. So how are you trying to encourage people, particularly of the minority community, to get involved in the whole testing process so that they can help with the cure process, but also deal with this stigma? Because there is a stigma around testing in some communities because of what happened with the Tuskegee experiment. So I was just wondering your thoughts on that.
Now, when you're talking about testing, you're talking about the actual testing for the virus or testing of the vaccine?
Testing of the vaccine.
That's a tough one because you just never know which what kind of gender issues will be there, what kind of racial issues, what kind of just environmental issues even. So that's a hard one because I know I have a friend who just went through the vaccine testing up in Durham and volunteered. And, she put it on her Facebook, I'm volunteering, you're welcome, but if something happens to me, you'll know what happened. Mm-hmm. So these people are taking a huge risk with this vaccine trial, which is always what people do. This is a very quick trial. I'm having a hard, I don't know what to, I'll be honest with you, I'm stuck on this one. Because you're right, the Tuskegee experiments, the previous ways that African Americans have been treated in this country, as far as testing, as far as putting them in the front line. I mean, you're even seeing these vaccine trials being in a racist way being tested in Africa first, which is not fair, just because they're seen as lower level human beings. That's the thing. It really, I don't know how to encourage that. That's a tough one because it's a very strong social stigma to try to fight against.
Dr. Tulia, how are you over there handling the issue of testing and does ethnic groups, are they factored into the testing?
So, see, India is a very diverse country. So we need to understand that we have basically, if we go by the margin of weave resembling the Oriental population, then we've got South, which is very different from right, and the people in the West are also very different. So we need to understand that ultimately, so we are a very, very diverse country, and our ethnic configuration changes with every around 100 to 200 kilometers, and we have long borders. So that's going to be a challenge, but we need to understand that ultimately the question again is that, as Dr. Arthur has said, that it's a gamble. And I would say not exactly a full gamble, but some kind of a calculated gamble. Because see, we are rushing things. I do agree with you, with Dr. Arthur also there, that we are trying to rush too much. But then do we have too many choices? That is the question. Because ultimately, see, countries like developed countries might survive this with this economic recession or whatever, But the developing countries and the poor countries, they will die under the weight of their own contradictions, because ultimately at the end of the day, I mean, so it's going to be a survival between, I mean, getting food and then the vaccine. I mean, so ultimately we need to co-factor a lot of things. Vaccine is going to be one part of it. That does not, and please understand, that does not preclude that we should not follow the basic tenets, that is social distancing, mask, and hand hygiene. So
And
no
Dr.
one is
Tula,
telling
I
you
was just
that
curious.
what a vaccine, you need to run away from all of this and forget everything, that all is hunky-dory. It's not going to be like that. Please do
No, that makes sense.
understand
Dr.
that.
Tula,
So vaccine or no
something,
vaccine, that does not mean that you are.
Dr. Tula, the other thing that I was going to ask you and everything was that we talked about this earlier before our good doctors joined the show and everything. And I know we got one of the doctors that's from North Carolina, but we were talking about the possibility of actually having a separate area for the COVID patients. And I was wondering, is that something that's going on in India where there's actually like separate hospitalization for the COVID patients versus the actual folks that are in the main hospital beds? Because I know here a lot of times the hospitals are having both, and I think that if I'm thinking correctly, that can also create some stigmas, because I know in the past folks have been released or put in another hospital bed for diseases or other diseases, and sometimes they were stigmatized because of being put in a separate place. So I've heard both arguments. It can work in a good way to have these separate kind of hospitals for whatever we're dealing with, and in this case it's COVID. But then I've also felt that there have been cases historically where it's been a stigma issue. So I'd love to hear from Dr. Tula if y'all are doing that in India, and also Dr. Arthur, if you've got some thoughts about the stigmatization if we do that.
So coming to this part, you see, in urban India, that means the big cities, we have dedicated COVID hospitals. And even if it is not a dedicated COVID hospital, there is good amount of segregation which is done between COVID and non-COVID patients. But the problem is that all of India is not urban India, and they all are not, tier 1 cities. So you have rural India also, and India which lives, majority of India still lives in small towns. Unfortunately, there is a challenge, because our health system is not totally geared up. I mean, so honestly speaking, I mean, I'm sure you also are struggling with this. So you do understand that ultimately all our politicians all across the world, health is not the greatest vote churner for anyone. So what happens is that the healthcare is the last priority in many people, I mean, when many politicians' minds. So ultimately, they don't spend too much on health. So what happens is, whether that is hospitals or, I mean, primary care centers, secondary care centers, tertiary care or quaternary care. I mean, so ultimately in the small towns and the towns which are not that well off, there is the challenge there. But fortunately, what has happened in India is that the maximum COVID, influx or the maximum brace has been on the people living in bigger towns. But now with this, people who have gone back to smaller towns too have started reporting high incidence of COVID. And the only problem now is even the testing. Please understand that in big cities, testing facilities are much better. In smaller cities, testing facilities are also not there. So, I mean, where are you going to segregate and how are you going to show? So it is basically more to do with the clinical acumen of the doctors who are deciding that whether this gentleman or lady is showing us signs of COVID, and then we are segregating and doing all of that. It takes days and days for them to get the test done, for the reports to come. So in big cities, no issues with that. Smaller cities, the challenge is there.
Thank you. Dr. Arthur, I want to hear your comments on the stigmatization and what Dr. Tula said as well.
As far as the keeping patients segregated in locations, I have a personal story. I just went through my first colonoscopy. I just hit 50 years old, And the first thing they did was I had to get a coronavirus test before I could even walk into the facility. And then when I got into the facility, they did a rapid test on me just to make sure I was negative. Everybody there assured me that they were negative. They had the proper PPE on. They had gloves on. They made sure they were hand washing right in front of me, etc., just to get rid of the stigmatization that you could get coronavirus in the facility. So I felt perfectly safe. Once I left the facility, though, people were like, "Ooh, you just came out of the hospital." And, you know, I work in healthcare, but people were like, "You know, did you get tested? Was everything safe?" And I was like, "Yeah, perfectly safe," because I never got into contact with the coronavirus section of the hospital. That's completely cordoned off, sectioned off. So people should have no problem feeling any stigma of going to the hospital, feeling any stigma of having gone into the hospital in a safe way. They should be getting their colonoscopies. They should be getting their surgeries. They should not be putting those things off, because the hospital is entirely safe now. Now that we've figured out this virus, how to keep people from getting it, you're not hearing anything about big outbreaks at hospitals or clinics even now. In my clinic, a patient that has COVID stays in their car. We do the treatments from the car. If they have to come in for x-rays or whatnot, we make sure we're disinfecting completely and everybody's got the proper PPE on. We make sure of that all the time because you never know which patient has it. But, you know, we've been lucky. We've had just about none of our employees. I've been face-to-face with about 110 positive cases. And because of proper PPE and procedures, we've been fine. So people should have no stigma of going going to the hospital, going to facilities, getting the care they need. That's outside of coronavirus. So with my own personal story, I felt entirely safe. Everybody should feel safe. And within the hospital, there's no stigma anymore. We know how to protect ourselves and how to protect other people from people with coronavirus. We know that people are taking serious the quarantines and things. And as long as they're doing all that, there should be no stigmatization, especially once a person gets over it. Then, you know, they're even safer with their immune systems are fine, because we're now starting to find that the immunity is good. Even though there's several different strains, we haven't seen somebody in our area, at least, getting it twice, not just the disease twice, because you can have people that test twice positive, but getting the disease twice is a different thing. And we haven't seen that. We've seen people be immune, except for the people on chemotherapy having poor immune systems. So the bottom line is, he's right. In the cities, there's less of a stigma. But here in our country, we're doing just as fine. I think that's the difference in the nations and the cultures and things. But there's really no stigmas against those patients or anybody going in facilities now.
Appreciate you saying that, and I'm glad that you went for that colonoscopy. That's one of those things that more and more folks need to be testing, whether it's the colon, whether it's prostate, whether it's the ladies and breast cancer. So I'm glad that you're urging folks that are still dealing with a lot of these other medical issues other than COVID to go there and continue to do those testings, because I know that those are still very important issues in our medical society. So I don't want folks to think that because of the COVID crisis that we shouldn't be concerned about other health issues as well. Wouldn't you agree with that, Dr. Arthur?
I had a really tough one this week. One of my patients, I diagnosed with aortic stenosis, and those patients are very high risk if they get COVID. But if he didn't get the valve taken care of, it's curtains. So you make a calculated decision. He went to Duke and they tested him for COVID before he got there. He got tested for COVID when he got there. They assured him that all the staff were wearing PPE and all that. And he just left the hospital yesterday after getting his new valve with no COVID. So you have to get those things done regardless of COVID happening. Get your colonoscopies, get your mammograms, get your chronic care, get your chemotherapy. Go to your hospitals, because really, even though there's a stigma, we're doing everything that we can to keep you safe. And you should just feel confident in it. The movie theaters are opening soon. If you stay 6 feet apart and wear your mask, you can go to the movies now. I went on an airplane to Las Vegas. I said, if I'm going to die for COVID, I'm going to take my kids on a vacation anyhow. Delta Airlines kept me safe. They kept us 6 feet apart. They yelled at anyone who took off their mask. They didn't touch any food or drinks. They handed it to us in Ziploc bags. They temperature checked at the door. Same thing at my hotel. Anytime somebody touched its surface, somebody was right there spraying and wiping it down. I felt perfectly safe taking the trip to Vegas. So we have to learn. This is going to be for 3 years. So if a business is willing to keep you 6 feet apart and enforce masks very strictly, go to those businesses. The most important businesses that we're doing that is the hospitals and the primary care offices and the medical facilities. Feel confident in going to see your doctors, because you need to. Don't put those things off for 3 years, because this will be a 3-year thing.
And I'm going to add to that, Dr. Arthur, because I was putting off seeing my doctor for some situations that I was having, and I was just scared to go that I would get sick or catch something more than what I already had. And, you know, by doing so, I created more problems. I ended up in the emergency room, which the emergency rooms, I have to say, they are doing a really good job. People, when you go to the emergency room, they are overloaded right now for whatever reason. There weren't enough beds that took them all day to do things, but they are taking all the precautions. I commend them for the hard work, but keep your mask on. That's all they asked of everyone in the lobby, and people were still taking their masks off, and they would have to come out, and, you know, people would get angry, and it's like they're only doing this for your own best care, and people would not listen. And I would see people get upset and, you know, leave. When just be patient. You know, they're doing the best they can. They are taking precautions. I don't see them afraid. You know, if I were working frontline or even in the emergency room, I would be afraid, but it's like you said, they know what they're doing. They have this part under control. And thank you for sharing your experience. Because that sheds a lot of fear. You know, Dr. Tula, what's been your experience with the people? I know they're testing for COVID first, but what's been your experience?
So this week I started slowly limping back to work. So today, I was there with procedures. So I did not do any surgical procedures, but I have done over this week. I have done basic injectable procedures like Botox fillers. I've done devices also. So what I did personally from my front was that I ensured that I was first is that I needed to be safe. So the masks and everything was in place. So we have a visor facility with us that is a kind of a shield which we place when we are doing procedures near to faces, because of course when you are doing near to faces, you're not going to put them, the patient is not going to be wearing mask. So we need to be careful that one, we are not transferring disease from us to them, because see, every day we are not going to check ourselves for COVID, right? That's not going to be practically possible that every day you are test for COVID and walk into a facility where you're going to provide services. So that is number one, which we did. The number two, which I ensured myself, was that whatever area where I was doing the procedures, it was kept sterile. Even the device, I made it personal point to basically sterilize it before I put device on the face of the patient. Because see, ultimately, I also did not want to take a chance. We have helpers who are going to do that with us, but then, I mean, see, it's my duty and my prerogative. The safety of my patient is my responsibility. So I was doubly cautious with this. So I think this is what we're trying to do. And we try to keep as open as, I mean, we're not trying to blow central ACs within the facility. We try to keep it as airy as possible. And of course, we do not call in people in bunches. So it is only one patient at one time. And even if someone walks into the time, we tell them very politely that they should not be in facility. And either there is a separate segregating area where we keep them, and that also one room, one patient. So no overcrowding, nothing doing. So that's how we've been working. And hopefully this is the way it's going to be.
I agree with you both that this is the procedures that we need. We just need to be cautious. Use some common sense, right, Ankit? Ankit, you got something.
Yeah. I think Bill needs to say something after Bill.
Oh, no, I had a question for both. Well, first for Dr. Aprillanar. The vaccine that you're talking about, the one that has the compromised immuno risk. First, would that come in booster shots, or is that a single dose? And did you have? Are you familiar with what apparently the reports they came out of Hong Kong, where one individual has caught COVID twice, and was that the same strain?
Well, that's the thing. I believe it was the same strain, but that's the thing. I don't have enough information on what happened, what the patient's immune system was like, if they were a cancer patient, if they were a rheumatoid arthritis patient, if they were getting immunosuppressants. There's a lot of questions on that, but you're really, you'll hear these case reports, but you're really not seeing that in the larger community. So I think it might be more patient specific that's happening, but I've not seen in the 7 months that I've been doing this, in the 110 patients that I've been face to face with, and the others that I've seen out of the hospital, I've not seen one come back yet with it coming back and having the symptoms again. So that's just my own personal, but as far as the case reports, I'd need to look at those case reports a little bit more closely to give you a better answer.
Okay. And with regard to the effect on the immune system, with regard to the one vaccine that they're testing that you referred to earlier, how widespread is your concern within the medical community? I mean, are they?
I'm pure with any new vaccine and with any new disease. It's always a concern. We're always, for instance, when the first Zostavax came out, before I started giving it, I watched and waited. Saw with my first patients that had gotten it from other means that they were doing okay. So then I started giving it. But then I saw about a year later that these patients kept getting shingles, and it wasn't as effective as you wanted. So the risk always has to be lower than the benefit. So the benefit of that vaccine was you don't get shingles. The risk is you might get the shingles and the immune system attacking the body by itself for some reason. But when I started using the Zostavax a year later, I saw it was this. The risks were happening more often than the people were preventing the shingles. Once the new shingles vaccine came out called Shingrix, it shifted back all the way back where it was high benefit, very, very, very low risk. That's what you want a vaccine to do. But even with all the testing and all the vetting, the very first version of that vaccine was terrible. So we don't give it anymore.
Now, I guess just one final question, and that is, at a larger level, are you feeling any political pressure? Because obviously the pressure is immense for anybody working in the field on this particular issue, because essentially the whole world is watching. And it's led to some concerns out in the general public that the studies and your work is being politicized and possibly being pressured for the medical community to cut corners. Do you see any of that, or what's your reaction to that?
Well, the biggest pressure I felt was hydroxychloroquine. Now, I've been interviewed a few times on hydroxychloroquine on this show, and there was a point where people were saying it didn't work. I was always a proponent that it did work, and I'm still a proponent that it works, but at the right time. So the studies that were cited that said hydroxychloroquine didn't work, the first big study from the New England Journal was studied in the VA hospitals with very sick patients that had been in the hospital and had already had a diagnosis of 2 weeks of coronavirus. It doesn't work that way. Hydroxychloroquine works when you first make the diagnosis and you prevent the immune system from attacking your body. You have to start it within 3 days of getting the diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Especially for a vulnerable patient.
Okay.
And so if it's used in that context, it works. The second study that they cited where they said it didn't work was they did a study that checked to see if they gave hydroxychloroquine to a bunch of people, and they looked to see if they ended up getting coronavirus when they got exposed. That's not how it works. It doesn't prevent the coronavirus vaccine. So those two studies are bunk studies that don't tell you anything if hydroxychloroquine works or not. You're supposed. So the studies that were done in China, where they gave it right when the person was diagnosed, there was a 65% improvement in those patients from ending up intubated or not. So which studies are we really using? So that's the political pressure. Are you using real good scientific studies to say hydroxychloroquine doesn't work, or are you using politicized studies? Those were politicized studies that should have never been part of the equation, because that's not how hydroxychloroquine works. Scientifically, it shuts the immune system from attacking the body, and you have to do it when the person's exposed. So it still works.
Well, Dr.
That's what's used in China. A bunch of I learned that from an herbalist. A lot of people can just get artemisinin off of Amazon. It's chloroquine in its natural state, and people are taking that right when they get the diagnosis and seeing they're not ending up in the hospital as much. So you don't even have to buy it or get it from a doctor. And they're talking about hydroxychloroquine being over the counter, but it's already been over the counter as artemisinin in China, and that's why you're seeing less numbers in China. So hydroxychloroquine, chloroquine, artemisinin work. Yes, there's a safety issue. A person has a heart problem, but you don't give it to those patients. You avoid those patients because that's what a good doctor does. But if you put it out in public where there's no prescription needed, that's another story. You might see some of those people they're bad. So that's where politicization, I don't feel politicized. I don't feel any pressure because I use science, and when I can back it up with my words, I feel no political pressure whatsoever, but I know other doctors do, because you could lose patients just by saying you're going to lose hydroxychloroquine. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Well, Dr. Art, if I may,
talking about trust being lost just because they're using hydroxychloroquine.
Dr.
Jim,
Art,
I think
if I
Jim's
may,
got a question.
yeah, I would like to ask, because the studies themselves were not politically based, but they've been used politically. Am I hearing you correctly?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So the studies themselves are legit, but as you were pointing out, they do not apply to the proper use of it. And what you're saying, the proper use of it can be effective. And my question to you is this, how does this prevent your immune system from attacking healthy tissue? Or is that the point that you're saying? What does hydrochlorine do if properly administered at the proper time?
In its most generic, basic sense, it's a immunosuppressant. So it stops the immune system from doing what it does. So on the first hand, if you have the basic coronavirus infection, it's like a cough and a cold. But then the secondary issue happens where the immune system learns to fight the virus, but the virus looks a lot like body parts. So the immune system starts attacking the brain, starts attacking the heart, starts attacking the lungs especially. That secondary issue is what causes the body to really shut down, need the intubations and all that. So when you take hydroxychloroquine, it causes the immune system to not attack the body as fiercely. So once that happens, then the immune system fights the virus, but then it doesn't fight the body as fiercely to cause all that damage to itself.
How does the other issue, Arthur, I think Dr. Arthur, is that some people associate. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
I was going to drill down on this a little further for my understanding. And how does the immune system know to attack the virus and not the healthy body parts? That's where I'm missing your point.
Well, that's the thing. That's the problem with this virus. The body doesn't know that. For the most vulnerable patients, the obese, the diabetics, the hypertensives, etc., the immune system has to do a lot more fighting for illnesses and infections. So then sometimes it gets a little bit too good at what it does. And in those patients especially, the immune system doesn't know that the virus is different. So for instance, one example of that is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. You've got a virus that attacks the body. The immune system fights it, but it looks a lot like the thyroid. So all of a sudden the body attacks its own thyroid, and all of a sudden you have hyperthyroidism, and a person has to either get this taken out by surgery or radiated to shut down the thyroid. So this has been a problem all along. Viruses sometimes, anything that the body fights will sometimes look like your own body, and you'll attack it. So it's the same concept as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So the bad thing about this virus is it does that. And so once again, the bad thing about a vaccine is it could do that because it runs by the same mechanisms. But the way hydroxychloroquine works, and now, before I was against prednisone because it shuts down the immune system from the virus, but now we know there are some good reasons to use it, and people will have less pneumonias and less lung damage when using it. So Pulmicort especially, I'm having the hardest time getting people Pulmicort because the insurance companies won't pay for it. They have to make me do a prior auth. I'm like, no prior auth, this is coronavirus, and they'll end up in the ICU if you don't give it to them. But they're making me have the patient wait 3 days to do a prior authorization. That's a policy issue that we need to deal with. But
my God.
The immune system will sometimes make that mistake. And for instance, the whole issue with the flu vaccine is a small segment of the population will have the flu vaccine teach the body to attack your own nervous system. So then Guillain-Barré happens. You'll see people who suddenly can't move, and they have to be put on breathing machines. They have to be taught how to walk again. That's what people get really against the flu vaccine for, is because that does happen fairly often, but not in a way that affects the entire population. But yes, there are people who get injured from that. My concern is hydroxychloroquine works. It prevents the body from attacking itself, but we don't know if a vaccine is going to do that or not yet. And it can take an insidious 3 years before you even see some of the effects on somebody's brain. So like I keep saying, this is a 3-year process. Whether we get a good vaccine or not that's safe, we're only at 2.6% of the population that's gotten coronavirus. We need to get that 60% for herd immunity. We've only gone through the first 7 months. So minimum 3 years that we got to mask and socially distance before we feel safe enough with the vaccine. So masking, social distancing, we can go back to movie theaters, we can go on airplanes and all that, live our lives in a better way. and not feel so confined and keep each other safe until we're very confident that the vaccine works, until we're very confident hydroxychloroquine doesn't do other things and hurt people. But I myself, seeing and knowing how the immune system works politically, I don't know what happens politically. I know my science is sound.
Yes, but Dr. Art, I have to ask this one other question, because my body is compromised and my immune system attacks its healthy tissue. I can't wear my wedding ring because my knuckle would swell to the point where it's incredibly painful. So I would say, should I be taking hydroxychloroquine from what you're saying, so it would prevent my body from attacking itself?
Well, I'm going to hedge this with, I'm not your doctor. I don't know you very well. So talk to your doctor first. Most important thing, talk to your doctor first. Now, just knowing that basic information, number one, you shouldn't just be taking hydroxychloroquine because that's not how it works. If you get a positive coronavirus test, seriously talk to your doctor and see if you should take it. That's when I would start it. But right now, it's too high risk to take on a regular basis just to prevent, because it doesn't prevent coronavirus. So if you get a positive test, or you definitely got exposed because somebody took off their mask at a restaurant and coughed right in your face and you knew they had COVID, you got to talk with your doctor and say, should I get hydroxychloroquine? That's when you should have the conversation. Talk to your doctor. I'd be seriously considering it.
Thank you.
This has probably been the most sound advice about what hydroxychloroquine is that I have heard in a long time, and I greatly appreciate it. But also the sound advice of let's maintain those good social practices so that we can all have a comfortable, healthy life, even at risk. We minimize that risk. And why not? Why put ourselves at a higher risk and risking, a mass spike in all of this? Why not just take those precautions until we have it under control? And like you said, we're looking at 3 years. This is what I kept telling everyone. Why are we pushing so hard to have a vaccine out that we use in 6 months? To me, that doesn't sound safe. And I'm glad that you brought the science into this because it's not. But I want to bring up something, what you talked about, that it's one of those medications that when you find out you have it, that within the first 3 days, you should start taking this, and perhaps the prednisone too.
Considering it, not taking, talk to your doctor.
talk to your doctor. But these are things to talk to your doctor about. I always say that too. But it reminds me of the use of zinc, right? If you take zinc within the first few days of you have a cold, usually you're going to prevent the bigger part of the cold. It doesn't mean you're going to stop it, but you're going to either, I don't know how zinc works, but it seems to work better than not taking it.
So all my high-risk patients, they're all on zinc. I told every one of them, start taking zinc, minimum 50 milligrams a day. So that's one you should be taking now, definitely. If I were a college president, I would have given every new student coming on campus a bottle of zinc. That would have done a lot of good for these people. And I'm going to say something controversial. I think the biggest mistake they made was shutting down the schools. Those are young patients who are probably not going to have a problem with the coronavirus, who are confined in dormitories. So you can let them get the coronavirus, let them stay there for 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you can have an open college system. So this is not public health, us not letting them get the coronavirus, and they're going to do it anyhow, and they're young. And now, of course, you got to protect the vulnerable college students who aren't as safe. You got to protect the staff. And the worst thing we did was we sent them home so that they could infect their parents and their grandparents who are more vulnerable. We're doing it backwards. Let the college kids get it, then you can open the schools. That's why the AAP said open up elementary schools. The kids can get it, keep the family safe. When they do get it in clusters, which is going to happen, have a system where their family members, the grandparents who take care of them, know immediately and have no interaction with them for 2 weeks. Then the schools can open again. We can get there faster than 3 years with the kids and the young people, but we're being stupid and keeping them from getting it.
Well, and I have to agree with you on that. And why send the kids home? Why not go ahead and quarantine them in hotels that aren't being used right now? Just keep them here where they, like you said, keep them here where they're at. Go ahead and let that inoculation take place and let it evolve. Just make sure that the professors are safe, that the administration, the staff, the older people. But like you said, let's go ahead and just, if it's there, let it. I agree with you on that. I'm a big one on not letting it.
I would like to I'll tell you something, because whatever we are talking about, creating a cluster and all those stuff, we tried similar practice for one of our world popular cricket league, which is happening in UAE, and then we created a bio bubble for all our sportsmen and cricketers, and then still we got to know that 12 players are being positive. They found positive today after doing the test every third day. When they arrived in Dubai, they got tested and then a couple of times, and before going to Dubai also, but still, and they're in a bio bubble. They're in a hotel where no one can, come and join them or things like that, and they have to be quarantined in their room for 7 days. But still, they're found positive. So we tried to do it. I think Dr. Tula would be, can share more light on that. But we tried multiple times. Yes, Dr. Tula.
Okay, the issue with me is that, see, I've been hearing this herd immunity thing going around for quite some period of time. So I have a little different take there on herd, because what I understand is that we're talking about a disease, right, which is going to evolve. It's a very smart virus. I respect this virus because it's a very, very smart virus. It has shown variations everywhere when this virus is there. It keeps on drifting to take a new dimension. See where it started from. It was primarily said to be a respiratory virus. Now every doctor on earth is agreeing that it is not only the respiratory system where this virus is attacking, it is attacking every system on the body. So that means the virus, either we misunderstood the virus on the first instance, or the virus is very smart. Now when coming to herd immunity, now what is herd immunity? Herd immunity is when we say that, okay, approximately the percentage may vary, but 60 to 70% of the people are already infected, right? And they have some kind of immunity against this virus. My question is that let's presume that we have a system where 70% are infected and they have developed this immunity. But how much time will this immunity remain? If the virus remains endemic, within 3 months your titer count goes down, and you will again, if you are again exposed to this virus, you will again get infected. Now in that catch and mouse game which we are going to play, ultimately there are chances that the virus may not go anywhere, but we may go somewhere. So we need to be careful with this, because I really believe this herd immunity concept. See, in England they tried this concept of herd immunity. It failed miserably for them. So ultimately, I believe we should respect our enemy. Unfortunately, what we need is we're downplaying it too much. So I do agree with a lot of things Dr. Arthur has said, but there is a little bit takeaway from this also, that we need to be very careful, because we have to understand that for every country you will have to have a different set of rules. You cannot have a similar rule for all countries. A developed country with less population, for example, Siberia is going to be very different from countries like India and countries like, we're talking about very congested countries, right? So we need to be very careful with that. And the herd immunity concept is something which is, I can assure you, no one understands this. Everyone talks about it, but I can assure you 100% if people keep their, hand on their heart and say that, do we really know what it is? I think it's anyone's guess. Because this disease is still evolving. We still don't know many things about this. And I'm sure as time passes, 6 months down the line, you will realize that you did not know a thing about this disease when we started off from.
And also, Dr. There was a story from Hong Kong, and it says that there was a person who found COVID positive 4 months back, and he again transmitted to some COVID symptoms with a different mutation, and he's still in the hospital in a ventilator. And doctors were surprised that how come the same person with different mutations found COVID positive in 4 months. So, as you said, that we are still researching and we don't know.
This has happened with a couple of doctors way back in Telangana also, which is part of India also. So, ultimately at the end of the day, that is the question. That this immunity, how much immunity is it going to give you against? Let's presume for example, A got COVID. And let's presume that what we're looking at the data at the moment is that it's around 3 months, which is speculative also. I don't know whether really to believe that or not, I don't know. But at the end of the day, the question again is the 4th month, 5th month, you're again exposed to it. Now the people who are saying that there is an immunity may say that, okay, the chances are that the second infection which you have may not be that serious. But then again, the question is that ultimately it's a theory. It's based on a theoretical hypothesis. See, no one knows how it's going to behave. So we need to be a little careful with that. I mean, in certain countries where we can maintain this social distancing, and I mean things can open on that manner. We can open up whatever we want to. But in countries like India, where you know that everyone breathes on the other one's neck, it is very difficult to do things like that.
Very well said.
That's a challenge.
Very well said.
Sasha needs to say something. Sasha, over to you.
I have a question to Dr. Tula. And Dr. Art, if you'd like to elaborate, you're welcome. Dr. Tula, you just mentioned earlier what a colossal expenses the pharmaceutical company have to endure in order to develop any new drugs, especially one now for coronavirus issue. It's very expensive. The results are very uncertain. And I'd like to understand from the perspective, you as a doctor, but my interest is purely financial. Would that be true to say that the results of the development of these drugs, which are very uncertain, it's not, first of all, the uncertainty is whether you'll be the first one to develop the drug. Second one, whether the drug will be effective. Third one, that it has to go through first, second stage, three stages, or many more for trials. Now, what I noticed lately that stocks of many of these companies, let's see, one is making an announcement about the first trial successfully concluded. The stock goes up 50%, then the next 2-3 days it dropped down to what it was before. The next company announced it went into second stage trial. The stock goes down 75% in 3-4 days. It's where it was before. Now, would that be a strategy to identify solid pharmaceutical companies which are not involved in the development of coronavirus drugs and keep it safe and play stocks of those companies, because there is no expenses to develop the new drugs? They're quite well run businesses, safe, and they're staying away from this madness of developing this coronavirus drugs. What do you think?
Ankit, I mean, Sasha's voice was breaking, so can you give me the gist of his question? I did not understand his question because there's a lot of breakage of his voice.
I also lost words in between, okay. I think.
So what I understand is that what I could gather from him is that he is asking basically two things. One, the commercials behind this, right? So, Sasha, it's a commercial world. We have to accept it. So these there are certain stories being planted in the media with a lot of complaining. We are going in this trial phase, that trial phase, which is expected also, right? Everyone is looking to make money. I mean, of course, it's not the best way to do it, but then I mean, I cannot sit in moral judgment on that what they're trying to do. But apparently, we must not disregard the fact that they're also trying hard to make a vaccine. Now, whether which vaccine is going to work or is going to work, because we have got multiple countries who are doing it, and we've got multiple partnering countries also which we are doing it. Because please understand the kind of volumes which are required. One single company on this earth cannot do that. It is not possible to do that. And then there are going to be laws for different vaccines for different countries. For example, if I take an example of US, you don't do Dr. Arthur will give me an insight into that better. But in India, we have a system where we have a vial system and we do basically multi-injection through a single vial. Now, what I understand in US is that you have a single syringe based system. So that means you do not take multiple injections out of a single vial to give it to multiple people. So we need to understand that this whole thing and paradigm will change with different countries following different type of modules to ensure that they are able to give better coverage to their people. When it comes down, and of course there is going to be technological sharing also, but then again the question again is that there are many partners and players in this field, and ultimately there is not going to be a single player. There are going to be multiple players emerging. And the vaccine, I can assure you, at least the first vaccine which comes will have the rumors advantage, but over a period of time, you will have better vaccines also coming in. So ultimately, the first mover may not get the fullest advantage, because please understand, they will be data sharing what is happening with their vaccine, and the people who may be in second or third in the race, or maybe fourth or fifth, they may have a better shot. So we need to understand it in perspective.
Appreciate that. I think we got to get ready to wrap up and get in everything. So I was going to do that. I was going to make a couple of just very quick comments and everything. One was to Dr. Arthur. I think part of what's going on is with the drug that you're proposing to be a great one is the fact that it's associated with a bad product, which is bleach. And I think that a lot of folks have that whole concept and are afraid of that. But I know for a fact that there are a number of drugs that have come from things that are harmful in society, but we find the other good component in order to get that aspect. So I do kind of think that that's one of the things that goes on with what's happening and everything. And I also was glad to see that you mentioned bringing the movie theaters back online. I'm actually sit on the board of a theater here in North Carolina, and we're actually in the process of starting to do a little bit of that. We're not bringing them back full force. You'd be glad to know we're doing social distancing, and we will be having the theater being much smaller in the sense of the audience. So like I said, a theater that seats 1,000 might only seat like 200, or a theater that seats like 100 might only seat about 30 or 45. So we are looking at ways to try to bring folks back, but to keep the social distance. And I can tell you, as one that's in the art field, that's kind of scary. The fact that you're telling me that it's going to be 3 years before we actually are very much on the level playing field, because as one, and we have other folks on the network that are involved in the entertainment field as well, that just the fact of us having to deal with 3 years is going to be a very difficult time for those of us that are in the arts and cultural world. But we do want to do what is correct for the greater population. We're just one aspect of the population. But I did want to say that we're going through the process. We'll do virtual cinema, we'll do virtual other things when it comes to the theater, and there will be more
and we're going to have to wrap up. I'm sorry, I guess but we need to wrap today.
Can I say one thing before we wrap up?
Yes, you may, please.
So, yes, please understand, Dr. Arthur and I are basically doctors. We are used to wearing these masks and taking utmost precaution for an umpteen number of years. Please understand, for the general public, it is very difficult to do that. I must compliment them that they are trying to do it, but it's very difficult. Please understand that I, being a surgeon, have been using masks for, now nearly into practice for now nearly around 25 years. So I've been using this for that period of time. But if I'm talking about a general person using this mask, so it's a very difficult task for them also, because they will feel breathless, they will feel, but my only request to people around is that please take care. The only thing is, this is your life, it is one life, you may not get too many lives around, so please take care about yourself and it's your duty to take care about people around you also, right? So it's very important that please be protected.
This is me 8 hours of the day, and when a person can't wear a mask, I usually have to teach them how to reduce their stress and anxiety, because that's why they can't wear a mask most of the time. It's not anything to do with their lungs or all that, and their oxygen levels aren't dropping. It's anxiety and stress. So,
and thank you so very much for saying that, because I tell people the same thing. If my doctor can wear a mask for 8 to 10 hours in surgery, I can certainly wear a mask when I walk out into the public for a couple hours. So God bless everyone. Thank you very much for watching us. We have a wonderful show this afternoon called Financial Friday with Nick Palaveda. And then we have Spiritual Saturday. And Ankit, I'll let you finish up.
So it's time to wrap up, and thank you for joining us. And do join us on our Financial Friday show at 1 p.m. followed by tomorrow's show, which is Spiritual Saturday. We are doing a lot of spiritual shows, starting with Soul Smart with Anandmai, followed by Talk Show with Dr. Saggu. And then we have our funk star, Zach Robertson, doing a show, followed by Plant a Good Seed. And then Chess Stars, as always, we are doing a World Championship tomorrow. So do join us, and it's time to wrap up, and have a good day. Take care and stay blessed, and stay safe, because still coronavirus is going on. So we have to make sure that we are careful and we protect our family and friends. And time to wrap up. Thank you. Take care, and bye-bye.
Okay.